Bound by Scars. Prologue. The dining room smelled of old money and older blood. Sienna Callahan stood at the threshold, fingers pressed against the doorframe hard enough to leave marks in the polished mahogany. Every instinct screamed at her to run. Her father's hand on her lower back, firm, possessive, a silent threat, kept her rooted in place. "Move," Liam Callahan hissed in her ear, not a suggestion. Never a suggestion with him. She moved. The room stretched before her like a execution chamber dressed in elegance. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across a table long enough to seat 20, though only 5 chairs were occupied. 4 men in tailored suits sat with the stillness of apex predators, watching, assessing, calculating her worth down to the penny. The 5th man stood. Ronan Blackwood. Sienna had seen his photograph, cold, professionally composed, the kind of image that graced the financial pages and carefully curated social media. The reality was different. Sharper. More dangerous. He was tall, easily 6'3", with shoulders that spoke of violence barely restrained. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from granite, all hard angles and no mercy. His eyes, pale green and utterly devoid of warmth, tracked her approach with the precision of a man accustomed to identifying threats. She kept her spine straight. Her breathing even. 26 hours of travel with 3 hours of sleep in the past 72. Victor's final conditioning. "Make yourself perfect for him," he'd said, his Russian accent thick with satisfaction. "Show him what I've made you." Perfect. The word tasted like blood. "Mr. Blackwood," her father's voice carried the false joviality of a man selling damaged goods. "My daughter, Sienna." Ronan's gaze slid from her father to her. Those pale eyes moved over her face, her shoulders, the careful way she held herself. She felt exposed, despite the conservative navy dress that covered every inch of skin from collarbone to wrist to ankle. As if he could see through the fabric to the roadmap of scars beneath. "Miss Callahan." His voice was low, controlled. Boston accent softened by education, but not entirely erased. "Please, sit." It wasn't a request. Sienna moved to the chair across from him. Every step was measured. Mechanical. She'd learned early how to move through pain, how to smile through screaming muscles and bleeding wounds. This was nothing. Just exhaustion. Just the bone-deep ache of a body pushed past its limits for the 10,000th time. She sat, folded her hands in her lap, met his eyes with the blank compliance Victor had drilled into her. Never let them see what you're thinking. Never let them see weakness. A weapon doesn't think. It waits for the command. "You've traveled far." Ronan remained standing. The other men, his cousin Finn, her father's lawyer, 2 witnesses she didn't recognize, shifted in their seats. An audience to her transaction. "From Chicago, I understand." "Yes." Her voice came out steady. "Good. She'd been afraid it wouldn't. I apologize for any delay. The weather was irrelevant." He cut her off smoothly. Not cruel, just factual. "You're here now. That's what matters." Liam laughed too loudly. "She's punctual. I promise you that. Good Catholic girl. Raised right." Sienna's fingers tightened imperceptibly in her lap. Raised right. As if the years with Victor were something to be proud of. As if he hadn't sold her to a monster to cover gambling debts when she was 17. As if those 9 years had been anything other than a systematic destruction of everything she might have been. "We should begin." Ronan's cousin, Finn, she remembered, slid a leather portfolio across the table. "The contract is straightforward. Standard prenuptial agreements, asset divisions, expectations of both parties." "I don't need to read it." Sienna spoke before she could stop herself. 5 pairs of eyes turned to her. "Excuse me?" Ronan's tone didn't change, but something flickered in those cold eyes. Surprise, maybe. Or suspicion. She lifted her chin. I don't need to read the contract. I'll sign whatever you require. Sienna, her father's warning carried an edge. Don't embarrass me. Don't make this difficult. She ignored him, kept her gaze on Ronan. I understand the terms. I'm here to fulfill an arrangement between our families. The details of asset division and legal technicalities are irrelevant to me. I'll be your wife in name. I'll attend whatever functions you require. I'll provide whatever appearances satisfy this alliance. That's the purpose of this marriage, isn't it? Silence. Finn shifted uncomfortably. The lawyer's pen stilled on his notepad. Liam's face reddened. Embarrassment or rage. She couldn't tell. Didn't care. Ronan studied her with an intensity that made her skin crawl. Not the predatory assessment of a man looking at a woman. Something colder, more clinical. The way a buyer examines a horse before purchase, checking for defects and weaknesses. You're very pragmatic, he finally spoke. Most women would at least pretend to have opinions about their future. I'm not most women. No. Something changed in his expression. Not warmth, but a calculation adjusting. I don't think you are. He moved around the table with liquid grace, stopping just behind her chair. She forced herself not to flinch, not to react. Victor had taught her that too, how to stay perfectly still while danger circled. Tell me, Miss Callahan. His voice came from directly above her, quiet enough that only she could hear. What exactly are you? The truth hovered on her tongue. I'm a weapon. I'm broken. I'm counting the days until I can disappear, and you'll never find me. Instead, she said, whatever you need me to be, Mr. Blackwood. A lie, but a useful one. He moved back to his seat, opened the portfolio. Then, let's proceed. The next 30 minutes passed in a blur of legal terminology and witness signatures. Sienna's vision kept blurring at the edges, but she blinked it away. Her hands trembled slightly as she signed her name. She blamed it on the pen, on unfamiliarity with the weight of expensive instruments. No one seemed to notice. The room felt too warm. Or too cold. She couldn't tell anymore. Her dress collar suddenly felt tight around her throat, like a noose. Like Victor's hands during conditioning sessions when he'd cut off her air and told her to keep fighting anyway. Breathe. Just breathe. You've survived worse than this. You've survived 9 years of worse than this. And with this final signature, the lawyer was speaking, but his voice sounded distant, underwater. The contract is legally binding. The marriage will proceed this Friday at... The chandelier multiplied into 3, then 6. The faces around the table blurred into flesh-colored smears. Miss Callahan? Her name. Someone was saying her name. Multiple voices now. Concerned. Urgent. She tried to stand. Her legs disappeared beneath her. The world tilted sideways in a slow, graceful arc that would have been beautiful if it wasn't so terrifying. Strong hands caught her before she hit the floor. Ronan's face swam into focus above her, pale green eyes wide with something she couldn't identify. His arms cradled her against his chest as he lowered them both to the ground. Call Reed. His voice cut through the chaos. Sharp, commanding. Now. Sienna tried to speak, to apologize, to explain that this was Victor's fault, the conditioning, the lack of food, the punishment for even the thought of escape, but her tongue wouldn't cooperate. The darkness at the edges of her vision crept inward, relentless. The last thing she heard before consciousness slipped away was her father's panicked voice. She's fine. She's just tired from travel. There's no need for a doctor. And Ronan's cold response, I'll determine what there's need for. Awareness returned in pieces. White ceiling, unfamiliar. The scent of antiseptic and something else. Cologne, expensive, masculine. Voices nearby, low and urgent. 36 hours since she's had a proper meal. Dehydration, exhaustion. But that's not what concerns me. Then, what does? Sienna knew that second voice. Ronan. She kept her eyes closed, stayed perfectly still. Another skill from another lifetime. These marks. A pause. The sound of fabric rustling. I need to examine her fully, but what I can see. Ronan, this isn't abuse in the traditional sense. Explain. The single word carried enough threat to make the air heavy. Look at the pattern. The scarring is systematic, precise. These aren't random strikes or defensive wounds. Someone did this deliberately, over years. See here? Something touched her arm, gentle, clinical. She forced herself not to react. This is from repeated stress on the ligaments. Overextension training. And here, another touch. Her shoulder this time. Microfractures that healed wrong. She's been subjected to a conditioning program. Silence. Long enough that Sienna almost opened her eyes to see Ronan's reaction. Conditioning. His voice had gone very quiet. Very dangerous. You're telling me she's been trained? Professionally, I saw similar patterns when I was in the service. Black Ops recruits. Special forces. This girl, Dr. Reed's voice held something like pity. Someone turned her into a fighter. A fighter. High level. The kind you don't see outside underground circuits or military programs. And recently, too. Some of these marks are only months old. She's been through hell, Ronan. Another pause. Then, her father knew. It wasn't a question. Had to. This doesn't happen in secret. Someone authorized it, paid for it, benefited from it. The sound of footsteps. Ronan pacing, probably. She could picture him, hands behind his back, that calculating mind processing every angle. Can you wake her? I'd rather let her come around naturally. Her body's been through significant trauma. But, Ronan, hesitation. When she wakes, be careful. Girls like this, they don't trust easily, and they're dangerous when cornered. I'm aware of what it takes to survive things that should kill you. Something raw edged Ronan's voice. Something that sounded almost human. She'll be safe here. That's non-negotiable. Even if she doesn't want your protection? Especially then. Sienna heard the door open. Close. Footsteps retreating. Silence settling like dust. She counted to 60. Opened her eyes. Ronan stood at the window, backlit by afternoon sun, hands clasped behind him in that same rigid posture. Military. She recognized it. He'd been trained too then. Just differently. You're awake. He didn't turn around. Don't try to get up yet. Reed said you need rest. She sat up anyway. Ignored the spinning room and the way her body screamed protest. She was in a bedroom. Massive. Elegant. Utterly foreign. The bed beneath her was softer than anything she'd felt in 9 years. How much did you hear? Still facing the window. Enough. Her voice came out hoarse. I can explain. Can you? Now he turned. Those pale eyes pinned her in place more effectively than any restraint. Because I'm very interested in understanding how a 25-year-old woman from a respected Chicago crime family ends up with the training patterns of a special forces operative. She said nothing. What could she say? My father sold me to pay his debts. A Russian fight promoter, named Viktor Kozlov, spent 9 years turning me into a weapon he could auction to the highest bidder. I've killed 7 people in underground death matches because it was kill or be killed, and I'm so broken inside that I don't even know who I am anymore. Sienna. He moved closer. Not threatening, but not exactly safe either. I need you to understand something. As of this afternoon, you are legally promised to me. In 4 days, you will be my wife. That makes you my responsibility, my protection. But I can't protect you if I don't know what I'm protecting you from. You don't want to know. Try me. She met his eyes, saw something there she hadn't expected. Not pity, not disgust, but a recognition. The look of one survivor seeing another. There's a man, she said quietly. Viktor Kozlov. He's the one who trained me. He's been preparing me for this marriage. For years. Ronan's expression didn't change, but his hands clenched at his sides. Preparing you. To be valuable. To be useful. To be the kind of wife who wouldn't embarrass her husband or ask inconvenient questions. The words came out flat. Emotionless. He thought he was doing me a favor. Where is he now? Chicago. He'll be at the wedding. He has to see his... She struggled with the word investment payoff. Ronan was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice carried a promise that made her skin prickle. "He won't be at the wedding." "You can't." "I can." He moved to the door, paused with his hand on the handle. "Reed will bring you something to eat. You'll stay in this room until you've recovered. We'll talk more tomorrow when you're stronger." "Mr. Blackwood." "Ronan." He glanced back. "You might as well use my name. You'll be taking it soon enough." He left, closed the door softly behind him. Sienna sat in the expensive bed in the unfamiliar room and realized with crystal clarity that she'd just walked out of one cage and into another. The only question was whether this one would be worse, or if, impossibly, it might be better. Chapter 1. Awakening in a Cage of Silk. Sienna woke to silence. Not the kind of silence that existed in the real world, punctuated by traffic, voices, the ambient hum of a city breathing. This was the silence of money. Thick walls, distance from everything ordinary, the kind of quiet that swallowed sound and gave nothing back. Her eyes opened to unfamiliar shadows dancing across an unfamiliar ceiling. For 3 heartbeats, she didn't remember where she was. Then it crashed back. The dining room. The contract. The collapse. Ronan Blackwood's estate. His bedroom. His world. She sat up too fast. The room spun, settled. Her body protested. Muscles tight. Old injuries singing their familiar song of damage and endurance. She was wearing different clothes. Soft cotton pajamas that weren't hers. Expensive enough that she could feel the quality against her skin. Someone had changed her. The thought made her stomach turn, not because she was unused to being handled like an object. Victor had stripped away that dignity years ago, but because she couldn't remember it happening, couldn't remember the vulnerability of unconsciousness, of hands moving over her body, seeing her scars in full light. The scars. Dr. Reed knew, which meant Ronan knew, which meant the carefully constructed fiction of normalcy she'd tried to present was shattered before it even began. Good, she thought bitterly, saves time on the lies. She swung her legs over the side of the bed. The floor was heated, of course it was. Even the floors in this place were too expensive to be cold. She stood, testing her balance. Steady, whatever they'd given her, IV fluids probably, judging by the faint tape residue on the back of her hand, had worked. The bedroom was massive, king-sized bed dressed in dark gray linens, floor-to-ceiling windows with blackout curtains currently drawn. Furniture that looked antique but was probably just expensive reproductions. A door to what she assumed was a bathroom. Another door, locked, she already knew without trying, to the hallway beyond. She was in a cage, a beautiful, temperature-controlled, utterly inescapable cage. She'd been in worse. The bathroom was exactly what she expected. Marble everywhere, rainfall shower, a tub big enough to drown in. She caught sight of herself in the mirror and stopped. She looked like hell. Dark circles under her eyes. Hollow cheeks from the weight she'd lost in the final months with Victor. His refinement period, where he'd controlled every calorie to make her more appealing to her future husband. Her dark hair hung limp past her shoulders, unwashed for days, and her eyes looked dead. She'd seen that look before, in the other girls at Victor's compound. The ones who'd stopped fighting. Who'd accepted their fate and let themselves become whatever their handlers needed them to be. She'd sworn she'd never let that happen to her. Too late, the reflection seemed to whisper, "You already did." No, she wasn't done. Not yet. Sienna turned on the shower. Let it run until steam filled the room. Stripped off the borrowed pajamas and stepped under water hot enough to hurt. She stood there until her skin turned red, until the heat reached through to muscles knotted from years of training and recent travel. The scars stood out in stark relief against her reddened skin, thin white lines along her ribs, knife work, precision cuts to teach her pain tolerance. The raised tissue on her shoulder, where a dislocation had healed wrong. The divot in her thigh from a compound fracture Victor had refused to have properly set because it would make her tougher. The burn marks on her lower back from the time she'd failed an endurance test, and he'd held heated metal to her skin for 3 full seconds. Each one a story, each one a lesson, each one a piece of herself that Victor had carved away and kept. She pressed her forehead against the tile and let herself feel it, the loss, the rage, the bone-deep exhaustion of surviving when survival cost everything. Then she turned off the water, dried herself with towels softer than anything she'd touched in 9 years, found new clothes laid out on the counter, jeans, a plain white t-shirt, undergarments still in their packaging. Someone had been in here while she showered, had access to this room, was probably watching even now. She dressed mechanically, checked the bedroom door, still locked. So she sat on the edge of the bed and waited. 15 minutes later, the lock clicked. The door opened to reveal a woman in her 60s, with steel gray hair pulled back in a neat bun and eyes that had seen too much to be easily shocked. She carried a tray, tea, toast, something that smelled like eggs. "Miss Callahan," her voice was brisk, Irish accent, softened by decades in America. "I'm Nessa, Mr. Blackwood's housekeeper. You need to eat." Sienna didn't move. "Where is he?" "Working. He's been in his office since dawn." "What time is it?" 2:30 in the afternoon. "You slept 14 hours. 14 hours. Victor would have punished her for that. Weakness, indulgence, failure to maintain discipline. But Victor wasn't here. Nessa set the tray on the bedside table. Studied Sienna with the kind of frank assessment that came from years of managing a household that probably ran on blood money. "Dr. Reed said you're to eat small portions every few hours until your system adjusts. He'll be by this evening to check on you." "I'm fine." "You collapsed from exhaustion and malnutrition. You're not fine. You're barely upright." Nessa's tone didn't change. Not unkind, just factual. "Eat, or I'll tell Mr. Blackwood you're being difficult, and he'll come up here himself." The threat was clear, subtle, but clear. Sienna reached for the tea. Chamomile. She hated chamomile. But she drank it anyway, because choosing battles was survival strategy number 1, and this wasn't worth fighting over. The toast was buttered, the eggs perfectly scrambled. She ate 3 bites and felt her stomach rebel, forced down 3 more. Nessa watched without comment. "The door was locked," Sienna said finally. "For your protection." "From what?" "From yourself, I'd imagine." Nessa collected the tray. "This is a big house. Easy to get lost. Mr. Blackwood didn't want you wandering off and hurting yourself in your condition." Translation: he didn't trust her not to run. "Smart man. When can I leave this room?" "When Dr. Reed clears you. And when Mr. Blackwood has time to speak with you." Nessa moved toward the door, paused. "He's not what you're expecting, you know. Mr. Blackwood. He's particular about certain things. Like locking women in bedrooms. Like keeping people safe when they clearly don't know how to do it themselves." Nessa's expression softened just slightly. "I've worked for him for 12 years. I've seen him deal with threats, with enemies, with men who would slit their own mothers' throats for power. He can be hard, ruthless even, but he's never cruel without cause." She left before Sienna could respond. The lock clicked back into place. Sienna sat in the expensive room with its expensive furniture and expensive silence and counted every possible exit. The windows, probably alarmed. The bathroom vent, too small. The door, locked and likely reinforced. She was trapped. Truly, completely trapped. And the worst part was that some treacherous corner of her mind whispered, "At least it's clean. At least it's warm. At least no one's hitting you." She hated that voice, hated what 9 years with Victor had done to her standards. That basic human decency felt like luxury now. 3 hours later, the lock clicked again. This time, it was Ronan. He filled the doorway with the kind of presence that came from years of commanding rooms full of dangerous men. Today he wore dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. No tie, no jacket. More casual than yesterday, but no less intimidating. Those pale green eyes swept over her with clinical precision, taking inventory, assessing damage. "You're awake." He stepped inside. Left the door open behind him. A small gesture, but meaningful. "How do you feel?" "Like I've been drugged and held prisoner." "You've been medicated and protected." He moved to the window, drew back the curtains. Afternoon light flooded in. "There's a difference." "Is there?" He turned to face her. "You collapsed in my dining room. Dr. Reed's assessment was that you were in acute medical distress. I could have called an ambulance, put you in a hospital, where any number of interested parties could have found you. Instead, I kept you here, safe, fed, monitored by a physician I trust with my life." "How noble of you." "It wasn't noble. It was practical." He leaned against the window frame, casual, like they were discussing the weather instead of her captivity. "You're going to be my wife in 3 days. That makes you my responsibility, and I protect what's mine. I'm not yours yet. Legally, you are. The contract is binding. Your father," something dark flickered in his expression, "ensured that." Sienna stood, faced him across the room. "What do you want from me?" "The truth. I told you the truth. Viktor Kozlov trained me. For this. For you." "That's not the whole truth." Ronan pushed off the window frame. Moved closer. Not threatening, but deliberate. "Reed showed me his full report. The scars, the training patterns, the systematic conditioning. You're not just some girl who learned self-defense. You're a fighter, professional level, the kind of training that takes years of intensive work." She said nothing. "I had Finn do some digging." Another step closer. "There are rumors, underground circuits, death matches. A female fighter they called the Wraith, who disappeared from the scene about 6 months ago. Before that, she had a perfect record, 12 fights, 12 wins, 7 of them fatal." Sienna's heart hammered against her ribs. She'd been so careful. Viktor had been so careful. "How?" "Your father sold you." Ronan spoke quietly now. Dangerously quiet. "When you were 17, to clear a gambling debt with the Kozlov family. Viktor took you and spent 9 years turning you into something he could sell to the highest bidder. And now here you are, gift-wrapped and delivered to my doorstep like a prize." She met his eyes, lifted her chin. "If you know all that, then why are we having this conversation?" "Because I want to hear you say it." "Why? So you can feel better about yourself? So you can play the savior?" "No." He closed the distance between them. Stood close enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. "So I can understand what I'm dealing with. Because the woman I thought I was marrying, some sheltered mafia princess, doesn't exist. You're something else entirely, and I need to know if you're a threat." "To you?" "To yourself." The words hit harder than any of Viktor's training sessions. Sienna laughed. It came out bitter, broken. "You want to know if I'm going to slit my wrists in your expensive bathroom, if I'm going to throw myself out one of your windows? Is that it? Are you?" She considered lying, considered giving him what he wanted to hear. But she was so tired of lies, tired of pretending, tired of being whatever someone else needed her to be. "I don't know," she said honestly. "I don't know what I am anymore. Viktor spent 9 years making sure I didn't have to think about that. He told me who I was, what I was for. And now I'm here, and he's not. And I'm supposed to just... What? Be your wife? Play house in this prison you've built? This isn't a prison. Then unlock the door. Let me leave." Ronan was quiet for a long moment. "Where would you go?" "I don't know." "Exactly." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and tucked a strand of damp hair behind her ear. The gesture was surprisingly gentle. "You have no money, no identification that isn't compromised, no safe place to run. Viktor's people would find you in 48 hours. Your father would sell you again to cover whatever new debt he's accumulated. You'd end up somewhere worse than his compound. And this time, there wouldn't be a convenient arranged marriage to save you. So I'm trapped. You're protected. What's the difference? Intent. His hand dropped. I don't want to break you, Sienna. I don't want to use you. He hesitated as if the words were foreign. I want you to be safe. To recover. To decide for yourself what happens next. That's not how this works. We're getting married. You own me. No. His voice hardened. The contract binds us legally. But you're not property. You're a person. And I'll be damned if I treat you the way that bastard did. She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him so badly it hurt. But trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. What happens now? She asked instead. Now, you rest, recover. We proceed with the wedding as planned. And after? After we figure it out. He moved back toward the door. The house is yours to explore. Nessa will show you around when you're ready. You're not locked in anymore, but I need you to understand something. What? He turned back. Those pale eyes were absolutely serious. If you run, I will find you. Not to hurt you, not to punish you, but to bring you back. Because out there, he gestured vaguely toward the windows, you're vulnerable. In here, you're safe. And I keep my people safe. That's non-negotiable. Even if they don't want your protection? Especially then. He left. The door stayed open this time. Sienna stood in the middle of the expensive room and felt the weight of her new reality settle over her like a shroud. She'd traded one cage for another. But this cage had open doors. This cage came with promises of safety instead of systematic torture. She walked to the window, looked out over manicured grounds that stretched toward a tree line in the distance. Somewhere beyond those trees was freedom. Real freedom. The kind Victor had stolen from her 9 years ago. But Ronan was right. She had nowhere to go, no way to survive out there on her own. Not yet. So she'd stay. She'd play along. She'd be the compliant wife he needed for his alliance. And she'd plan. Carefully. Methodically. The way Victor had taught her to plan every strike, every counter, every kill. Because Ronan Blackwood might not be Victor. He might even be kind, in his own ruthless way. But he was still a man who thought he could control her. And Sienna was very, very good at destroying men who underestimated her. She just had to be patient. Chapter 2. The Doctor's Report. Ronan stood at his office window, watching Sienna move through his garden like a ghost. She'd been at the estate for 3 days. 3 days of careful observation. 3 days of cataloging every hesitation, every flinch, every moment her eyes went distant, with whatever hell Victor Kozlov had put in her head. She didn't think he was watching. That was clear from the way she moved when she thought she was alone, testing her injured leg, running through strike sequences against invisible opponents, pressing her fingers against old wounds like she was checking to make sure they still hurt. Like she needed the pain to feel real. You wanted to see me? Ronan turned from the window to find Dr. Marcus Reed standing in the doorway, medical bag in hand. The man looked tired. But Reed always looked tired. A permanent condition from 20 years as an army medic, followed by another 15 patching up men who couldn't walk into regular hospitals without answering uncomfortable questions. Come in, close the door. Reed complied, settling into the leather chair across from Ronan's desk with the ease of long familiarity. They'd known each other since Ronan was 23 and Reed had put 17 stitches in his side after a deal went bad. Trust was earned in blood in this world. Reed had earned his a dozen times over. I want your full assessment, Ronan said without preamble. Everything you didn't tell me when she was in the room. Reed opened his bag, pulled out a file folder thick with documentation and photographs, spread it across the desk like evidence at a crime scene. Where do you want me to start? The beginning. Reed pulled out the first photograph. Sienna's shoulder. The scarring visible, even through the medical quality imaging. The shoulder dislocation happened approximately 4 years ago. Based on the healing pattern, it was deliberately left untreated. The joint reset itself incorrectly, which means she's operating at about 70% mobility in that arm. Ronan's jaw tightened. He said nothing. The ribs, another photo, show evidence of repeated trauma, precision strikes if I had to guess, the kind designed to teach pain tolerance without causing permanent damage to vital organs. Professional work. Professional. Someone knew exactly what they were doing. This isn't amateur hour, Ronan, this is systematic conditioning. Reed flipped to another image. The burn marks on her lower back are from metal heated to approximately 400 degrees, held for 3 seconds each. The spacing suggests it was done multiple times over several months. Ronan's hands clenched on the armrests of his chair. What else? Malnutrition. Chronic. Her bone density is concerning for someone her age. She's been on controlled rations for years, enough to keep her functional, not enough to be healthy. Reed's expression hardened. The ligament damage in her leg is from overextension training. Someone pushed her past the point of injury repeatedly. That's why she still limps. Permanent? Manageable with proper physical therapy, but it'll always be a weakness. Reed closed the folder, met Ronan's eyes. The psychological damage is harder to quantify, but based on her responses during my examination, she exhibits classic symptoms of complex PTSD. Hypervigilance, emotional numbing, dissociative episodes. She's functioning, but barely. Ronan stood, walked back to the window. Sienna had moved to the far corner of the garden, where a stone bench sat beneath an old oak. She sat perfectly still, hands folded in her lap, staring at nothing. Can she be fixed? She's not broken, Ronan. She's traumatized. There's a difference. Reed's voice softened. With time, therapy, safety, she can heal. But it won't be quick. And it won't be easy. Timeline. Years. Maybe decades. Some things she'll carry forever. Ronan turned back. What about the fighting? Reed's expression shifted. That's the interesting part. Based on the muscle development and scarring patterns, I'd estimate she has approximately 9 years of intensive combat training. The kind you see in professional fighters or special forces operatives. Maybe both. Finn found information about underground circuits. A fighter called the Wraith. That tracks. The conditioning patterns fit. Someone was preparing her for extreme violence. Reed hesitated. Ronan, I need to ask, are you prepared for what that means? Say it. She's dangerous. Genuinely dangerous. The training she's received isn't defensive. It's offensive. Lethal. If she feels cornered. She could kill me. Without hesitation, and probably before you knew she'd made the decision. Reed leaned forward. I'm telling you this as your physician and your friend. Be careful with her. Ronan almost smiled. I'm always careful. Not careful enough, apparently. You married her. The contract was already in place. You could have avoided it, made some excuse, paid off the father and sent her back. Reed's eyes were sharp. But you didn't. Why? Ronan looked back out the window. Sienna had stood, was walking the perimeter of the garden with the methodical precision of someone mapping escape routes. I don't know yet, he said honestly. Reed stood. Well, figure it out. Because that girl is a ticking bomb, and you just brought her into your home. After Reed left, Ronan pulled up the file Finn had compiled on Viktor Kozlov. Russian, 53, no family to speak of. Run an underground fighting circuit out of Chicago for the past 15 years, specializing in death matches and human trafficking. Known associates included several Eastern European crime families and at least 2 corrupt Chicago PD detectives. And he'd had Sienna for 9 years. Ronan studied the grainy photograph Finn had managed to acquire. Victor looked unremarkable. Average height, graying hair, the kind of face you'd forget 5 minutes after seeing it. But Ronan knew better than to judge threats by appearance. The most dangerous men were often the ones who looked harmless. His phone buzzed. Finn. Tell me you have something. Nothing you'll like. Finn's voice was tense. Victor's been making calls. Quiet ones. He knows the marriage happened. and he's not happy about it. Define not happy. He's been asking questions about you, about the estate, about security protocols. He's planning something. Ronan's free hand clenched into a fist. Where is he now? Still in Chicago. But he's got people in Boston, at least 3 that we've identified. Names. Finn rattled off 3 men Ronan didn't recognize. Muscle, probably. Watchers. Victor was smart enough not to come himself yet. Have them eliminated. A pause. All 3? All 3, quietly. I want Victor to know his people are dying, but not why. Make him paranoid. Consider it done. But Ronan. What? He's not gonna let her go easily. She's valuable to him. 9 years of investment. He'll come for her eventually. Let him try. Ronan ended the call, stood at his desk for a long moment, processing. Victor Kozlov had taken a 17-year-old girl and spent nearly a decade breaking her down and rebuilding her into a weapon. For money. For profit. For an arranged marriage to a man she'd never met. The rage that rose in Ronan's chest was cold, controlled. The kind of anger that didn't burn hot. It froze everything it touched. Victor Kozlov was a dead man. The only question was timing. That evening, Ronan found Sienna in the library. She sat curled in one of the leather chairs by the fireplace, a book open on her lap. But she wasn't reading. Her eyes were fixed on the flames, watching them dance and flicker. "Do you like it?" he asked from the doorway. She didn't startle. He'd noticed that she always heard him coming, always knew exactly where he was in relation to her. The book or the room? Both. The room is beautiful, she touched the book's spine. The book is sad. He moved closer, glanced at the cover. Wuthering Heights. Most of the classics are. Maybe that's why they're classics, because they understand that life is sad. Ronan settled into the chair across from her. The fire crackled between them, casting shifting shadows across both their faces. I spoke with Dr. Reed today. Her expression didn't change. And? He gave me his full assessment. The scars, the training, the psychological damage. Ronan kept his voice even. Factual. I know what Victor did to you. You knew before. I knew the surface. Now I know the details. He leaned forward. 9 years, Sienna. 9 years of systematic torture disguised as training. The burns, the deliberately untreated injuries, the controlled starvation. He broke you down piece by piece. And rebuilt me. Her voice was flat. That was the point. The point was to destroy who you were and replace it with what he needed. Yes, she met his eyes. So now you know. I'm damaged goods. Broken. Whatever pretty words Dr. Reed used. Her lips twisted. Are you having second thoughts about the marriage? No. That seemed to surprise her. Why not? Because you survived. Ronan held her gaze. 9 years of hell and you're still here, still fighting. That's not broken, that's strong. Or stubborn. Same thing, usually. A ghost of a smile crossed her face, disappeared. What happens now? Now I deal with Victor. She went very still. What does that mean? It means he loses. Ronan's voice hardened. He's been making inquiries, sending people to watch the estate, planning something. I'm not going to wait to find out what. You can't. I can, and I will, he stood. Victor Kozlov made a mistake when he trained you for this marriage. He gave me something invaluable. A wife who can defend herself, who understands violence, who won't fall apart when this world shows its teeth. Ronan moved to the fireplace. But he also made an enemy, because I don't forgive men who hurt what's mine. I'm not yours yet. Legally, you are. Emotionally, he paused. That's your choice. Sienna was quiet for a long moment. If you go after Victor, he'll retaliate. He has connections, resources. He's not just some street thug you can eliminate quietly. Neither am I. Ronan, this isn't negotiable. He turned to face her. He put his hands on you. hurt you, used you. That debt gets paid. In full. She stood, walked to him with that liquid grace that spoke of years of combat training, stopped close enough that he could see the gold flecks in her dark eyes. You don't owe me revenge. I owe you safety, which means Victor dies. And if I don't want that? Ronan studied her face. Do you want him alive? She didn't answer immediately. Her jaw worked, her hands clenched at her sides. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. I want him to suffer the way he made me suffer. I want him to feel every burn, every broken bone, every moment of terror. She broke off, swallowed hard. I want him to die slowly. Then that's what you'll get. You can't give me that. Watch me. They stood in the firelight, close enough to touch but not touching. The air between them felt charged, dangerous. Why? Sienna asked finally. Why does it matter to you? You didn't even know me 3 days ago. Ronan considered the question. The honest answer was complicated. Wrapped up in memories of his sister, in the guilt of failing to protect someone who'd needed him, in the bone-deep conviction that some debts had to be paid regardless of personal cost. Because you're my responsibility now, he said instead, and I protect what's mine. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have right now. She searched his face, looking for lies probably, for hidden agendas, for whatever Victor had taught her to expect from men. I don't trust easily, she said. I know. I might never trust you. That's your choice. And if I run, I'll find you, bring you back, keep you safe whether you want it or not. He held her gaze. I told you already. I'm not Victor, but I am dangerous, and I don't let go of things that matter. I'm a thing now? You're a person, but you matter. There's a difference. Sienna stepped back, wrapped her arms around herself in a gesture that was pure self-protection. I need time. You have time. 3 more days until the wedding. After that, you have the rest of your life. To do what? Figure out who you are when no one's telling you. Ronan moved toward the door, paused. The library is yours whenever you want it. All the books, the whole house actually. Nessa will show you around tomorrow. Ronan? He turned back. Thank you. The words sounded foreign in her mouth, like she wasn't used to saying them. For this, whatever this is. You don't need to thank me. Maybe not, but I wanted to anyway. After he left, Ronan stood in the hallway and let himself feel the full weight of what he'd just promised. Victor Kozlov would die. Painfully. Publicly enough to send a message, but quietly enough to avoid unnecessary attention. And Sienna, damaged, dangerous, desperate Sienna, would be safe, even if she spent the rest of her life hating him for it. Chapter 3. Ghosts in the Garden. Sienna found the training room by accident. She'd been exploring the estate, Nessa's promise that she had full access finally feeling real on her 4th day there. The main house sprawled across 3 floors and 2 wings, more space than she knew what to do with. Libraries, sitting rooms, a formal dining room that could seat 30. Everything polished and perfect and utterly empty of life. But the garden had drawn her. Green space, open air, room to move without walls pressing in. She'd walked the perimeter twice, cataloging exits and blind spots out of habit, when she noticed the path. Gravel, leading away from the manicured lawns toward a standalone structure, half hidden by old oak trees. The building was smaller than the main house, but substantial. Stone and timber construction, expensive but understated. No windows on the ground floor, a single heavy door with a keypad lock. She tried the handle without much hope. It opened. The interior took her breath away. A training facility, professional grade, the kind Victor would have killed to own. Padded floors. Floor-to-ceiling mirrors on one wall. Heavy bags hanging in one corner, speed bags in another. A full-weight rack. Resistance bands, medicine balls. Everything you'd need to build a fighter from scratch. Or maintain one. Sienna stood in the doorway, heart pounding, her fingers curled against the frame hard enough to leave marks. He knows. Of course he knew. Dr. Reed had examined her, Ronan had done his research, but knowing intellectually and seeing physical proof were different things. This room wasn't here by accident. It had been prepared for her. She stepped inside. The door clicked shut behind her, and the silence wrapped around her like a familiar embrace. How many hours had she spent in rooms like this? Thousands. Tens of thousands. Training until her body gave out, until Victor decided she'd earned rest. Her reflection stared back from the mirrors, hollow-eyed, too thin, wearing borrowed clothes that hung loose on a frame that used to be solid muscle. She looked weak. She looked broken. She looked exactly like what she was, a weapon that had been used up and discarded. No. The thought came sharp and vicious. She wasn't done, not yet. Sienna moved to the center of the mat, kicked off her shoes. The padded floor was exactly the right density under her feet, firm enough for balance, soft enough for impact. She started with basics, stance, weight distribution, testing her injured leg to see what it could handle. Pain flared immediately, the old ligament damage singing its familiar song. She pushed through it, adjusted her weight, compensated the way she'd learned to over the years. First position, guard up. She threw a jab into empty air. The movement felt rusty, wrong. Her shoulder protested, the dislocation that had healed crooked, limiting her range. Again, faster. The muscle memory kicked in. Her body remembered even if her mind wanted to forget. Jab, cross, hook, pivot, reset. She could feel Victor's voice in her head. Faster, harder, stop thinking, react. She threw herself into it, let the familiar routine wash over her. Let her body do what it had been trained to do for 9 years. Strike, block, counter, move. The pain in her leg became background noise. The tightness in her shoulder just another variable to work around. She was sweating now, breathing hard, muscles screaming protest. Good. Pain meant she was still alive. Still fighting. She didn't know how long she'd been going when she heard the door open. Ronan stood in the entrance, watching her with those pale green eyes that saw too much. Sienna froze mid-strike. Her chest heaved. Sweat dripped down her spine. She probably looked insane, wild-eyed and desperate, attacking shadows in his training room. How long have you been standing there? Her voice came out rough. Long enough. He stepped inside, let the door close. Your form is impressive, even with the injuries. Don't. She dropped her guard. Don't patronize me. I'm not. That was professional assessment. You're good, Sienna. Better than good. I'm rusty. You're injured. There's a difference. He moved closer. Stopped a few feet away, giving her space. How's the leg? Fine. You're limping. I'm always limping. She grabbed a towel from the rack. Wiped her face. Did you have this room built for me? No. It was already here. I use it. That surprised her. You train? Military background. I served 6 years before, he trailed off. Before I took over the family business. Old habits. Sienna studied him with new eyes. The way he carried himself. The controlled movements. The posture that spoke of discipline drilled in over years. What branch? Marines. Force Recon. That explained a lot. The precision, the watchfulness, the ability to read threats before they materialized. You, any good? She asked. Something that might have been amusement flickered in his expression. Good enough. Prove it. The words were out before she could stop them. Reckless. Probably stupid. But she needed this. Needed to test herself against someone real instead of memories and air. Ronan's eyebrow raised. You want to spar with me? Unless you're afraid I'll hurt you. Now he definitely smiled. I'm more worried about your leg, Reed said. Reed isn't here, and I'm asking. She met his eyes. Please. The please seemed to decide him. He shrugged off his jacket. rolled up his sleeves, kicked off his shoes. "Rules?" he asked. "No permanent damage. No face shots. Stop when someone calls it." Agreed. He moved onto the mat, took a stance that was textbook military combatives. "Ready when you are." Sienna circled him, assessing. He was bigger, easily 6 inches taller, probably 60 pounds heavier, reach advantage, strength advantage. But she was faster, and she'd been trained for asymmetrical combat since she was 17. She feinted left. He didn't bite. Smart. She tried again. Same result. He was patient, waiting for her to commit. So she committed. Jab to test his reflexes. He blocked easily. Cross follow-up. He slipped it. She pivoted, tried a low kick to his lead leg. He checked it, countered with a jab of his own that she barely avoided. They reset, circled. This time he attacked first. Straight right that came fast. She ducked, came up with an uppercut aimed at his solar plexus. He twisted, took it on his arm instead. The impact sent pain shooting through her already damaged shoulder, but she didn't stop. Hook to the body. He blocked. She followed with an elbow. He caught her arm, used her momentum to pull her off balance. She went with it, dropped her weight, swept his leg. He stumbled, but didn't fall. Strong base. Good balance. They separated again. Sienna was breathing hard now. Her leg was screaming. Her shoulder felt like it was on fire, but she felt alive for the first time in months. "You're holding back," she said. "So are you." Fair point. She'd been compensating for her injuries, fighting at maybe 60% capacity. Again, she demanded. This time she didn't hold back. She came in fast. Combination strikes. Jab, cross, hook, knee. He blocked most of it. What he didn't block, he absorbed. Then he countered. His fist came at her ribs. She twisted, took it on her arm instead, retaliated with a palm strike toward his throat that he barely deflected. They were closer now, too close for proper striking. She went for a clinch. He anticipated it, grabbed her wrist, spun her around. Suddenly her back was against his chest, his arm across her collarbone, not choking but controlling, completely immobilizing her. She froze. The position was too familiar. Victor used to hold her like this, press her against him while he whispered what he'd do if she failed, if she embarrassed him, if she tried to escape. Her vision tunneled. The training room disappeared. She was back in the compound, back in that concrete cell, back in... Sienna. Ronan's voice, quiet, careful. "I'm going to let go now, slowly." His arm released. He stepped back, put space between them immediately. She spun around. Her breath came in gasps. Her hands were shaking. "I'm sorry," the words tumbled out. I wasn't." "It's okay." He stayed perfectly still, hands visible, non-threatening. "You're safe. I'm not him." She knew that. Logically, she knew. But her body hadn't gotten the message. Her heart was racing. Her skin felt too tight. "Breathe," Ronan said. "In for 4. Hold for 4. Out for 4. She followed his instructions. The breathing exercise pulled her back from the edge. The training room came back into focus. Ronan was watching her with something that looked like concern. Not pity. She would have hated pity. Just genuine worry. "I'm fine," she managed. "You're not, but that's okay." He moved slowly toward the wall, grabbed a water bottle, held it out to her. "Triggered?" She took the bottle. "Yeah." "PTSD? According to your doctor." "Not my doctor, just a doctor." Ronan sat down on the mat, cross-legged, casual. "For what it's worth, you were winning." Despite everything, she almost smiled. "Was I?" "Definitely. Another 10 seconds and I would have had to tap out. You fight dirty." "I fight to win." "Good, that's how you survive." He looked up at her. "Victor taught you well, even if he was a monster about it." Sienna sank down across from him. Her leg was throbbing now, the adrenaline crash hitting hard. "He wasn't always cruel," she heard herself say. Sometimes he was almost kind. That was worse, somehow, when he'd patch me up after training. Tell me I did well, that I was his best investment. Ronan's jaw tightened. That's not kindness, that's grooming. I know, now. But when you're 17 and your father's just sold you to a stranger, any attention feels like affection. Your father, Ronan's voice went cold. Liam Callahan, he's on my list. Your list? People who need to pay for what they did to you. She should tell him not to, should say revenge was pointless. That violence only created more violence. Instead, she said, make it hurt. His eyes met hers, understanding passing between them without words. I will. They sat in silence for a moment. The training room felt different now. Not Victor's space, not a prison. Just a room where two damaged people sat across from each other and spoke truths they couldn't say anywhere else. The flowers came this morning, Sienna said finally. Ronan went very still. What flowers? White roses, no card, but I know who sent them. She pulled something from her pocket. A single petal, crushed and brown at the edges. Victor used to send these before fights. His way of saying he was watching, that he owned me even in the ring. Where are they now? I threw them in the trash, but that's not the point. He knows where I am, what I'm doing, he's watching. Good, Ronan stood, offered her his hand. Let him watch. Let him see that you're protected now, that he can't touch you. Sienna took his hand, let him pull her to her feet. He's not going to let me go easily. I'm counting on it. Ronan's expression was absolutely serious. I want him to come, to make his move, so I can end him permanently. And if he comes with an army, then I have a bigger army. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that Ronan Blackwood was strong enough, smart enough, ruthless enough to protect her from the monster who'd made her. But trust was a luxury she'd lost 9 years ago. The wedding is tomorrow, Ronan said. After that, you're legally mine, under my protection, in my family. Victor can send all the flowers he wants. He'll never get close enough to hurt you again. And if I don't want to be owned by anyone, not even you, then I'll spend every day proving you're not owned. You're protected. There's a difference. You keep saying that. Because it's true. He moved toward the door. Stopped. This room is yours whenever you want it. Train, work out, fight shadows. Whatever you need to do to feel like yourself again. What if I don't know who myself is anymore? Ronan looked back at her. Then you figure it out. And I'll make sure you have the time and space to do it. After he left, Sienna stood alone in the training room. Her reflection stared back from the mirrors. Still hollow-eyed. Still too thin. Still broken in ways that might never heal. But for the first time in 9 years, she felt like maybe, just maybe, she could start putting the pieces back together. On her own terms. In her own time. And when Victor came for her, because he would come, she'd be ready. Not as his weapon. As her own. Chapter 4. Rules of Engagement. The dress arrived at dawn. Sienna heard Nessa's quiet knock, then the sound of garment bags being hung in the closet. She didn't move from where she sat by the window, watching the sun bleed gold across Ronan's estate. Her wedding day. The words felt surreal. Like something happening to someone else. Some other woman who hadn't spent 9 years being systematically destroyed and rebuilt into a weapon. Some other woman who could actually believe in white dresses and promises and happily ever after. Miss Callahan. Nessa's voice was gentle. We need to begin preparations. Sienna turned. The housekeeper stood in the doorway, hands folded, expression carefully neutral. Behind her, the closet door stood open, revealing cream silk and delicate lace. I don't want to wear white, Sienna said. Nessa's eyebrow raised fractionally. Mr. Blackwood was quite specific. I don't care. The words came out harsher than intended. She softened her voice. I'm sorry, white feels wrong. What would you prefer? Sienna hadn't thought that far ahead. She'd been so focused on the wrongness of white, virginal white, innocent white, untouched white, that she hadn't considered alternatives. "Gray," she said finally. "Or black." "Black is for funerals. Isn't this one?" Nessa's lips twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. "I'll see what I can arrange." 2 hours later, Sienna stood in front of the mirror in a dress that took her breath away. Not white, not black. Something in between. A dove-gray silk that caught the light and shifted like smoke. The cut was simple. Elegant. A fitted bodice that didn't try to hide her too thin frame. A flowing skirt that fell to her ankles. Long sleeves to cover the scars on her arms. She looked like a ghost, beautiful and haunted and utterly lost. "Perfect," Nessa murmured, making a final adjustment to the hem. "I look dead. You look ethereal. There's a difference." The housekeeper stepped back, studied her with those sharp eyes that missed nothing. "He's nervous, you know." "Ronan?" "Been pacing his office since 5 this morning. Snapped at Finn twice. Nearly broke his coffee cup." Nessa's expression softened. "I've worked for him 12 years. Never seen him like this." Sienna didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know how to process the idea that Ronan Blackwood, cold, controlled, dangerous Ronan, was nervous about marrying her. "What's he wearing?" she asked instead. "A suit that probably costs more than most people's cars." Nessa smiled. "Dark gray, almost like he coordinated without knowing." The thought made something twist in Sienna's chest. Some stupid romantic notion that maybe they were connected somehow, that maybe this forced arrangement could become something real. Dangerous thinking. "It's time," Nessa said quietly. The ceremony was held in the garden. Sienna walked down a path lined with white roses. Not the kind Victor used to send. These were different, softer, toward an arch covered in ivy and late-season flowers. 20 guests, just as Nessa had warned. Men in expensive suits. A few women who watched her with curiosity and something that might have been pity. And at the end of the aisle, Ronan. He looked like he'd been carved from stone. Dark gray suit tailored perfectly to his frame. White shirt. No tie. The collar open at his throat. His hands were clasped behind his back in that military stance she recognized. But his eyes were locked on her, like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. Sienna's breath caught. She walked toward him, without music, without a father to give her away, without any of the traditional wedding trappings, just her feet on grass and the sound of her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. When she reached him, Ronan extended his hand. She took it. His fingers were warm, steady. They closed around hers with a gentleness that made her throat tight. "You're beautiful," he said quietly, too quiet for anyone else to hear. "I'm terrified." "I know." His thumb brushed across her knuckles. "So am I." The officiant began speaking. Standard words about love and commitment and joining 2 lives. Sienna barely heard them. She was too focused on Ronan's face, on the way he was looking at her like she mattered, like she was worth protecting, like she was worth saving. "Do you, Ronan Michael Blackwood, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" "I do." No hesitation. His voice carried absolute certainty. "And do you, Sienna Marie Callahan, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" She should say no, should run, should refuse to tie herself to another man who thought he could own her. But Ronan wasn't Victor. He'd proven that again and again over the past 5 days, and maybe, this cage could become something else. "I do." The words felt like surrender, or maybe like choosing her own fate for the first time in 9 years. Ronan slid a ring onto her finger. Platinum. Simple. No enormous diamond to draw attention. Just a band that felt solid and real against her skin. She slid his ring on in return, watched it settle into place like it had always been meant to be there. "You may kiss the bride." Ronan's hands came up to frame her face. His touch was careful, reverent, like she was something precious that might break. "Is this okay?" he asked, so quietly only she could hear. The fact that he asked, that he gave her choice even now, made something crack open in her chest. Yes. His lips touched hers, soft, gentle, nothing like the brutal kisses Victor had forced on her as training. This was different. This felt like a promise. When they broke apart, applause rippled through the small gathering. Sienna turned to face their audience as Ronan's arms settled around her waist. "Ladies and gentlemen," the officiant announced, "I present to you Mr. and Mrs. Ronan Blackwood." Mrs. Blackwood. The name felt foreign, heavy, like wearing someone else's identity. But as Ronan guided her back down the aisle, his hand steady at her back, Sienna realized something. For the first time in 9 years, she had a choice in who she became. And maybe, just maybe, she could choose to be someone stronger than what Victor had made her. The reception was mercifully short. A tent had been set up on the lawn with a small dinner service, champagne toast that Sienna barely touched, polite conversation with people whose names she immediately forgot. Ronan stayed close, not smothering but present. His hand would brush her lower back when someone approached. A subtle reminder, "I'm here, you're safe." Finn cornered her during dessert. "So," Ronan's cousin said, leaning against the table with calculated casualness, "how does it feel to be part of the Blackwood family? Ask me in a year." He laughed. "Fair enough. For what it's worth, I think you're good for him. You don't know me. I know you spar with him. I know you don't take his shit. I know he looks at you like—" Finn paused. "Like she matters more than anything else. That's new." Before Sienna could respond, Nessa appeared at her elbow. "Mrs. Blackwood, there's a delivery for you." Sienna's blood ran cold. "What kind of delivery?" "Flowers. The driver said they were urgent." She stood too quickly. Her chair scraped against the floor. Ronan was at her side immediately. "What's wrong?" "Flowers," she managed. His expression went deadly. "Where?" Nessa led them to the front of the house where a delivery van was parked. The driver, young, nervous, clearly not understanding the tension, held an enormous arrangement of white roses. Victor's roses. Sienna's hands started shaking. Ronan took the flowers, set them on the ground with careful precision. "Who ordered these?" The driver checked his tablet. "Anonymous sender. Paid cash." "The card says," he squinted, "Congratulations on your marriage. Some gifts are meant to be returned." Sienna felt the ground tilt beneath her. Ronan's voice went very quiet, very dangerous. "Get back in your truck. Leave. Now." The driver didn't need to be told twice. As soon as he was gone, Ronan turned to Finn. "I want every camera between here and wherever that van came from. I want the cash traced. I want to know who placed that order and where they are right now." On it. Finn was already on his phone. Ronan looked at Sienna. "We're going inside." "I'm fine." "You're shaking. You're pale. And we both know what those flowers mean." His hand found hers. "Inside. Now." She let him guide her back into the house, through the foyer, up the stairs, into what she realized was his bedroom. Their bedroom now. The thought was somehow more terrifying than Victor's message. Ronan closed the door, locked it, turned to face her. "He knows," Sienna said. Her voice sounded distant, hollow. "He knows I got married. He's watching." "I know." "He's going to come for me." "I know that too." Ronan moved closer. "Which is why we need to establish some ground rules." She almost laughed. "Rules?" "For our marriage. For how this works." He gestured to the room. "This is our space now, shared. But I need you to understand some things." "Like what?" "Like you're not a prisoner here. You can leave this room whenever you want. Go anywhere in the house, on the grounds. The training room is yours. The library, all of it. But you don't leave the estate without security. You don't open packages without checking with Finn first. And if Victor makes contact, any contact, you tell me immediately." Sienna wrapped her arms around herself. "That's a lot of rules." "They're not rules. They're protection protocols." Ronan's expression softened fractionally. I meant what I said in my vows. You're my wife now, my responsibility, and I take that seriously. I can protect myself. I know you can. Reed showed me your file, the Wraith. 12 fights, 12 wins, 7 fatalities. He paused. But you shouldn't have to fight alone anymore. Something in her chest cracked open. I don't know how to do this. Do what? Trust someone. Let someone in. She looked away. Victor spent 9 years making sure I didn't need anyone. That I couldn't rely on anyone. And now you want me to just... What? Believe you'll protect me? That this is real? No. Ronan moved closer. Stopped just within arm's reach. I want you to give me a chance to prove it. And if you can't? Then you can leave. I'll arrange new identities, safe passage, enough money to disappear completely. You'll never see me or Victor again. She searched his face. You'd really let me go? If that's what you need to feel safe, yes. His jaw tightened. But I'd prefer you stay. Figure this out. Give us a chance to make this marriage into something real. Why? Because, he hesitated, because I've been alone in this house for 12 years. Running an empire, making deals, eliminating threats, and none of it matters. None of it feels like anything other than going through the motions. And I'm supposed to change that? You already have. He took a breath. The moment you walked into my dining room and collapsed, everything shifted. For the first time in years, I felt something other than cold calculation. What did you feel? Rage. At whoever hurt you. And then, another pause. Something else. Something I haven't felt since my sister died. The need to protect someone at any cost. Sienna's throat tightened. I'm not your sister. I know, but you're my wife, and that means something to me. He held her gaze. Give me 1 month, 30 days to prove I'm not Victor. That this marriage can be different, and if after that you still want to leave, I'll arrange everything. She should say no, should protect herself. Should run before she got hurt again. But Ronan was looking at her like she mattered, like she was worth fighting for. And maybe, just maybe, she could risk trusting him. 1 month, she said finally, but I have conditions. Name them. I train when I want, no restrictions. Agreed. I'm not locked in rooms, not ever. Agreed. And, she swallowed hard, separate beds, at least until I'm ready. Something flickered in his expression, not disappointment, understanding. Agreed. I'll sleep in one of the guest rooms. This is your room. It's our room now. You should have it. I'll take the one down the hall. The fact that he was willing to give up his own space, his sanctuary, for her comfort made something in her chest ache. 1 month, she repeated. 1 month. He extended his hand. Deal? She took it. His palm was warm and calloused against hers. The handshake felt more binding than the vows they'd spoken earlier. When he left to give her space, Sienna stood alone in the massive bedroom and looked down at the ring on her finger. Mrs. Blackwood. Maybe she could learn to wear that name, learn to be that person. But first, she needed to survive Victor's inevitable retaliation. And she had a feeling that was going to require every skill he'd ever taught her. Chapter 5. Breaking Points. The nightmares started on the 3rd night. Sienna woke gasping, sheets twisted around her body like restraints. For a disorienting moment, she didn't know where she was. The room was too big, too dark, too quiet. Not the compound, not Victor's cell. Ronan's estate, her room now. She pressed her hands to her face and tried to breathe through the panic. The dream had been vivid. Victor's hands around her throat, his voice whispering that she'd never escape, that she belonged to him, that marriage wouldn't save her. A soft knock at the door made her freeze. Sienna? Ronan's voice, muffled by wood and distance. I heard. Are you okay? She should tell him to go away. Should handle this herself the way she'd learned to during 9 years of isolation. Instead, she heard herself say, Come in. The door opened. Ronan stood in the threshold wearing sweatpants and nothing else, his hair disheveled from sleep. The hallway light behind him created a halo effect that made him look almost ethereal. "Nightmare?" he asked. She nodded, didn't trust her voice. He moved into the room slowly, sat on the edge of the bed, far enough away to give her space. "Want to talk about it?" "No." "Okay." He didn't leave, just sat there in the darkness, a solid presence that somehow made the shadows feel less threatening. "Why are you awake?" she asked finally. "Light sleeper, military training." He glanced toward the window where dawn was just starting to bleed into the sky. "And I've been monitoring the security feeds. Victor's people have been testing our perimeter." The fear came rushing back. "How many?" "3 that we've identified. They're watching, mapping patterns, building intelligence." Ronan's voice was matter-of-fact. "Finn's been tracking them. 2 are dead. The 3rd disappeared 6 hours ago." Sienna should have been horrified, should have recoiled from the casual way he discussed killing. Instead, she felt a savage satisfaction. "Good," she said. Ronan turned to look at her. His expression was unreadable in the dim light. "You're not upset?" "They work for Victor. They would have hurt me if they'd gotten the chance." She pulled her knees to her chest. "I stopped feeling guilty about violence a long time ago." "That's not the same as enjoying it." "No, but it's close enough." Silence settled between them, not uncomfortable, just present. "Reed wants to see you today," Ronan said finally, "for your first therapy session." Sienna's stomach nodded. "I don't need therapy." "You have nightmares every night. You flinch when people approach from behind. You catalog exits in every room you enter." His voice was gentle. "That's PTSD, Sienna, and it's not going to get better on its own." "I'm fine." "You're surviving. There's a difference." He stood. "The session is at 2, non-negotiable. It was part of our agreement." "I don't remember agreeing to therapy." "You agreed to give me 30 days. That includes following Reed's medical recommendations." Ronan moved toward the door, paused. "For what it's worth, he's good. And he's seen worse than what Victor did to you." After he left, Sienna sat in the growing light and tried to imagine telling a stranger about the 9 years that had destroyed her. The thought made her want to vomit. Dr. Reed's office was in the main house, a room Sienna had passed a dozen times without realizing what it was. Comfortable leather chairs, bookshelves lined with medical texts and what looked like philosophy. A window overlooking the garden, everything designed to be non-threatening. Reed himself was less threatening than she'd expected. 50s, graying hair, kind eyes that had seen too much. He gestured to one of the chairs. "Sienna, thanks for coming." "Did I have a choice?" A slight smile. "Not really, but I appreciate the cooperation anyway." She sat stiffly, hands folded in her lap, every muscle tense. Reed settled across from her with a notepad. "I know Ronan gave you the overview. Complex PTSD, chronic pain, dissociative episodes. But I want to hear it from you. How are you feeling?" "Fine." "Try again." She met his eyes. "I'm angry, exhausted, terrified. I can't sleep without nightmares. I can't be touched without flinching. And I'm married to a man I barely know who thinks he can fix me." "Do you want to be fixed?" The question caught her off guard. "What?" "Fixed. Like you're broken. Is that how you see yourself?" Sienna's throat tightened. "I survived 9 years of systematic torture. Victor turned me into a weapon. Of course I'm broken." "Or," Reed said quietly, "you're traumatized, which means you can heal." "Semantics." "Psychology," he made a note. "Tell me about the nightmares." She didn't want to, but something about Reed's calm demeanor, his refusal to treat her like she was fragile, made the words come easier. "They're always the same. Victor. The compound. The things he did." She swallowed hard. "Sometimes I'm fighting him. Sometimes I'm trying to escape. Sometimes I'm just frozen. Unable to move or scream or do anything while he—" Her voice broke. Reed waited. Didn't push. just gave her space to breathe. He used to do that, Sienna continued after a moment. Paralyze me. There's a nerve cluster in the neck. If you press just right, you can temporarily disable someone without causing permanent damage. He'd do it during training. Said I needed to learn to fight through impossible situations. That's not training. That's torture. I know that now, she looked out the window. But at the time, I thought if I just tried harder, if I was good enough, he'd stop, that I could earn my way out. Classic conditioning. Make the victim believe they have control when they have none. Reed's expression hardened. Viktor Kozlov is a sociopath. Nothing you did or didn't do would have changed his behavior. The words should have been comforting. Instead, they made her angry. Then what was the point? Sienna's hands clenched. 9 years, 9 fucking years of hell. For what? To end up married to another man who wants to control me? Does Ronan want to control you? He locks the estate. He has security following me. He dictates when I can leave, where I can go. He's protecting you from a credible threat. That's different from control. Is it? Reed leaned forward. Has he hit you? Forced you to do anything sexual? Restricted your access to food or water or basic necessities? No. Has he allowed you to train? Explore the house? Make decisions about your own body and schedule? Yes, but... Then he's not Viktor. Reed's voice was firm. I'm not saying Ronan's perfect. He's got his own trauma, his own issues. But he's not trying to break you. He's trying to keep you alive long enough to heal. Sienna wanted to argue, wanted to maintain her anger because anger was safe. Anger kept her moving. But Reed was right, and that was terrifying in its own way. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. Do what? Trust. Let someone in. Be, she gestured helplessly, normal. Normal is overrated, and trust takes time. Reed made another note. Here's what I want you to do this week. Keep a journal. Write down the nightmares, the triggers, the moments when you feel safe and when you don't. Bring it to our next session. That's it? For now. Healing isn't linear, Sienna. It's messy and painful. And sometimes you'll feel worse before you feel better. But you survived 9 years of hell. You can survive this too. Sienna found Ronan in the training room that evening. He was working a heavy bag with controlled precision. Jab, cross, hook, pivot, reset. His torso was bare, muscles moving under scarred skin with each strike. She'd seen him shirtless before, that first sparring session. But this felt different. More intimate somehow. He noticed her in the mirror, stopped mid-strike. How was Reed? Terrible, necessary. She moved onto the mat. He wants me to keep a journal. Will you? Maybe. She stretched her shoulders, testing the range of motion. Depends on how much I want to admit to myself. Ronan grabbed a towel, wiped sweat from his face. Finn got more intel on Viktor's operation. Sienna's stomach dropped. And? It's bigger than we thought. Not just fighting circuits. Full trafficking network. He moves women through Chicago, Detroit, New York. Sells them to the highest bidder. Ronan's expression was hard. You weren't the first girl he trained. Just the most successful. The room tilted. How many? At least 15 over the past decade. Most of them disappeared after failed sales. One turned up dead in the Chicago River 3 years ago. Sienna sat down hard on the mat. He killed them. Or sold them to people who did. The details are unclear. Ronan crouched in front of her. I'm telling you this because you deserve to know, and because we found something else. What? There are 2 girls at his compound right now. 17 and 19. He's preparing them the same way he prepared you. The rage that swept through Sienna was pure and cold and absolute. We have to get them out. I know. When? Ronan studied her face. You're not ready. I'm the only one who knows the compound layout, the security protocols, Viktor's routines. She stood. You need me for this. It's too dangerous. Everything is dangerous. But those girls don't have time for me to heal first. She met his eyes. This is non-negotiable." For a long moment they stared at each other, a battle of wills. Then Ronan nodded slowly. "1 week. You train every day. Reed clears you mentally. And you follow my lead exactly. No improvisation." "Agreed. If you freeze, if you panic, I'm pulling you out." "I won't freeze." "You froze when I grabbed you during sparring." The reminder stung, but he was right. "Then help me not freeze," she said. "Train with me. Push me. Make sure I can handle it." Ronan's expression shifted, something that looked like respect. "Every morning, 6 a.m., full combat scenarios." He extended his hand. "Deal?" She took it. "Deal." His fingers closed around hers, warm and solid and steady. For the first time since the nightmares started, Sienna felt like maybe, just maybe, she could face Victor again. Not as his victim, as his destroyer. The training started the next morning at exactly 6 a.m. Sienna was already in the training room when Ronan arrived, wearing compression pants and a sports bra that left her scars visible. She'd stopped trying to hide them. What was the point? He'd seen the medical reports. He knew every mark, every story her skin told. "Ready?" Ronan asked, dropping his gym bag by the wall. "Always. We're going to run scenarios. I'm going to grab you from behind, pin you, put you in situations that might trigger you." His expression was serious. "And you're going to learn to fight through it. And if I freeze, then we reset and try again, as many times as it takes." He moved on to the mat. The goal isn't to never feel fear, it's to function despite it. They started simple, Ronan approaching from the front, Sienna defending, countering, maintaining control. Then he escalated. He came from behind, grabbed her shoulders. The position was too similar to Victor's restraints. She froze, breath catching, vision tunneling. "Sienna," Ronan's voice cut through the panic. "What do you feel?" "Can't breathe." "Yes, you can. In for 4. Hold for 4. Out for 4. He released her, stepped back. Again. They repeated the exercise, over and over. Each time, Sienna's freeze response shortened. Her breathing stabilized faster. Her body started to understand. This is Ronan, not Victor. Safe, not dangerous. After an hour, she could take the grab without freezing at all, could counter, break free, strike back. "Good," Ronan said, slightly winded. "Really good. You're adapting faster than I expected." "I had excellent training." The bitterness in her voice was sharp. "You had brutal conditioning. There's a difference." He tossed her a water bottle. "Victor taught you to survive. I'm teaching you to live." "By putting me through more trauma?" "By giving you tools to process the old trauma." Ronan drank from his own bottle. "Reed calls it exposure therapy. I call it practical application." Sienna wanted to argue, but she couldn't deny that she felt different, stronger, more in control. "Tell me about the compound," Ronan said suddenly. She tensed. "Why?" "Because we're going in next week, and I need to know everything." He sat on the mat, gestured for her to join him. "Layout, security, Victor's patterns, where he keeps the girls." Sienna sat across from him, started talking. The compound was in an industrial area outside Chicago. Abandoned factory converted into training facility. 12 rooms total, 8 cells, 3 training spaces, 1 office. Victor lived off-site but visited daily. Usually around noon. He'd inspect the girls, run training sessions, leave by evening. Security was minimal, 2 guards during the day, 1 at night. Victor was arrogant. He didn't think anyone would dare attack him. "The girls are kept in the cells on the 2nd floor, Sienna said. Her voice had gone flat. Mechanical, the only way she could talk about this without breaking. "Locked doors, no windows. They're let out for training and meals, that's it." "How did you escape?" "I didn't. My father sold me in the arranged marriage to your family. Victor prepared me for that. Made sure I was perfect for my future husband." She met Ronan's eyes. "You were supposed to get a compliant, well-trained wife who knew how to fight and fuck and keep her mouth shut. But that's not what I got. No. You got someone broken enough to be dangerous. Ronan's hand reached out, stopped just short of touching her. You're not broken, and you're not dangerous to me. How do you know? Because if you wanted me dead, I would be. You've had plenty of opportunities. He smiled slightly. I sleep down the hall. You know where I keep my weapons. You're fast enough to kill me before I could react. I've thought about it. I know, but you haven't done it. His hand finally made contact, fingers brushing across her knuckles. That's trust, Sienna, even if you don't recognize it yet. She looked down at where their hands almost touched. The gesture was so small, so insignificant, but it felt monumental. 1 week, she said. Then we get those girls out. 1 week. Ronan agreed. And Sienna? Yeah? Thank you for trusting me with this. After training, Sienna returned to her room and found a package on the bed. Plain brown wrapping. No card, no indication of sender. Her heart rate spiked immediately. She should call Ronan, should follow protocol, should not open packages without security clearance. But something made her reach for it anyway. Inside was a book, old leather binding, pages yellowed with age. And tucked between the pages, a photograph. Sienna's hands shook as she pulled it free. The photo showed 2 girls, teenagers, bruised and hollow-eyed, standing in what was unmistakably Victor's compound. On the back, written in Victor's precise handwriting, "They're waiting for you to save them, but we both know you're too broken to try." The rage that swept through Sienna was incandescent. She didn't realize she was screaming until Ronan burst through the door, Finn right behind him with his weapon drawn. "What happened?" Ronan demanded. Sienna couldn't speak, just held out the photograph with shaking hands. Ronan took it. His expression went from concern to cold fury in seconds. "How did this get past security?" he asked Finn. "I don't know. I'll find out." Finn was already on his phone. Ronan turned back to Sienna. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, found her voice. "He knows. Victor knows we're planning something. He's taunting us." "Let him taunt." Ronan's voice was deadly calm. "We're moving up the timeline. Tomorrow night, we extract those girls and end this." "Tomorrow? That's too soon." "He's escalating, getting bolder. If we wait, he'll move them or kill them just to prove a point." Ronan's hands settled on her shoulder. Steady, grounding. "Can you do this tomorrow?" Sienna looked at the photograph again, at the girls who were living the nightmare she'd escaped. "Yes," she said, "I can do this." That night, the nightmare came again. But this time, when she woke gasping, she didn't stay alone. She got out of bed, walked down the hall to the guest room where Ronan had been sleeping. Knocked softly. He opened the door immediately, like he'd been awake, waiting. "Nightmare?" he asked. "Yeah." He stepped back. "Come in." The room was sparse, just a bed, a chair, his laptop on a desk, nothing personal. Like he'd been living out of a suitcase his whole life. Sienna sat on the edge of the bed. "I don't want to be alone." "Okay." He sat next to her. Not touching, just present. "Tell me about your sister," Sienna said quietly. Ronan was silent for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, her name was Lily. She was 19 when she died, caught in crossfire during a deal that went bad. His voice was flat, empty. "I was supposed to protect her. That was my one job, and I failed." "That wasn't your fault." "Wasn't it? I brought that world to her doorstep. I made enemies. She paid the price." Sienna understood. Guilt was a familiar companion. "Is that why you're so determined to protect me? Because you couldn't save her?" "Partly." He looked at her. "But also because you're not her. You're your own person. And you deserve to be safe. To heal. To choose your own future. Even if that future doesn't include you? Even then." They stayed like that until dawn. 2 damaged people finding comfort in shared silence and shared pain. And when Sienna finally fell asleep against his shoulder, she didn't dream at all. Chapter 6. Into the Fire. The compound looked smaller than Sienna remembered. She stood next to Ronan's SUV in the industrial wasteland outside Chicago, staring at the building that had been her prison for 9 years. Concrete walls, barred windows, the rusted sign still hanging crooked over the door. Kozlov Import/Export. A lie. There had never been any legitimate business here, just suffering. "You okay?" Ronan's voice cut through her thoughts. "No." She checked her weapon for the third time. Glock 19, 17 rounds, 2 extra magazines. But let's do this anyway. Behind them, Finn coordinated with the rest of the team, 8 men total, all former military, all loyal to Ronan, all expendable if Victor had prepared better than they anticipated. "Remember the plan," Ronan said quietly. "We go in fast, extract the girls, get out. You stay with me at all times." "I know the plan. I need to hear you say it." She met his eyes, saw the fear lurking beneath his controlled exterior. He was terrified she'd freeze. Or worse, that she'd break. "I stay with you. I don't engage Victor unless necessary. I focus on the girls." She pulled on her tactical vest. "And if I freeze, you pull me out. I remember." He nodded, didn't look convinced. But they were out of time. Finn approached. "Perimeter is clear. 2 guards confirmed, both on ground floor. No sign of Victor's vehicle." "He's here," Sienna said with certainty. "He always comes on Thursdays. Inspection day." "Then we move now, before he leaves." Ronan pulled on his own vest. "Teams?" Finn rattled off positions. Alpha team on the east entrance. Bravo on the west. Ronan and Sienna would go through the main door. The most dangerous approach, but the fastest route to the second-floor cells. "Comms check," Finn said. Sienna touched the earpiece, heard the confirmations from each team member. Her hands were steady, her breathing controlled. All that training with Victor had been good for something. The irony wasn't lost on her. 30 seconds, Ronan said. They moved as one, silent. Efficient. Years of practice evident in every step. The main door was locked. Sienna knelt, pulled out the picks she'd requisitioned from Ronan's armory. Muscle memory took over. 3 years Victor had made her practice this particular skill. A weapon that can't escape its cage is useless, he'd said. The lock clicked open. Ronan's hand settled on her shoulder. Good girl. The praise sent warmth through her chest, different from when Victor said it. Better. They entered fast. The first guard was at the desk, eating lunch, when Ronan's suppressed shot took him in the shoulder. He went down hard, unconscious before he hit the floor, non-lethal, as promised. The second guard appeared from a side hallway, saw them, reached for his weapon. Sienna moved on instinct, closed the distance, disarmed him with a move Victor had drilled into her 10,000 times. The guard's gun clattered across the floor. She followed with an elbow strike to his temple. He dropped. Clear, she breathed. Ronan was staring at her with something like awe. That was... Fast? She was already moving toward the stairs. We need to move faster. Victor could be upstairs. They climbed quickly. The second-floor hallway stretched before them. 8 doors, 6 cells, 1 training room, 1 office. Victor's office. Girls first, Ronan reminded her. Right, the girls. Sienna moved to the first cell. The door was locked from the outside. She used the master key she'd stolen 9 years ago, the one Victor didn't know she'd duplicated. The one she'd kept hidden in her shoe through the entire arranged marriage process. The door swung open. A girl looked up from the corner, 17 maybe. Dark hair, bruised face, eyes that had seen too much. My name is Sienna, she said quickly. I'm here to get you out. Can you walk? The girl nodded. Didn't speak. Probably couldn't. Sienna had been the same way after her first few months. Stay behind me. Second cell, another girl, 19, blonde, covered in scars that Sienna recognized, training marks. "We're leaving," Sienna told her. "Right now, do what I say and stay quiet." Both girls followed without question. They'd been trained to obey. Sienna hated that, hated Victor for making them into this. "Team Alpha, we have the packages," Ronan said into his comm. "Moving to extraction." The office door opened. Victor stepped out. He looked exactly the same. 53, average height, unremarkable face, the kind of man you'd forget instantly. Except Sienna would never forget him. "Devochka," he said in Russian, "little girl, you came back." Every muscle in Sienna's body locked. The hallway disappeared. She was 17 again. Scared and alone and completely at his mercy. "Sienna," Ronan's voice, steady, grounding, "stay with me." She couldn't breathe, couldn't move, couldn't do anything but stare at the man who'd destroyed her. Victor smiled. "I knew you would. You always were my best investment. Did you really think marriage would save you?" "Step away from the door," Ronan ordered. His weapon was up, aimed at Victor's center mass. "Now." "Or what? You'll kill me in front of your wife?" Victor's smile widened. "She's seen worse. I made sure of that." "Last warning. You don't understand." Victor took a step forward. "She belongs to me. 9 years I spent on her, turning her from nothing into something valuable. You think a piece of paper changes that?" Sienna's vision was tunneling. Her chest felt too tight. This was the freeze response, the thing she'd trained all week to overcome. But training and reality were different. "Sienna," Victor said her name like a caress. "Come here. We can discuss this like adults. I'll even let your new husband live if you cooperate." "Don't," Ronan said quietly. "Don't listen to him." But Victor's voice was in her head, the same voice that had whispered instructions during training, that had told her when to stop, when to continue, when to accept pain as necessary. Her feet moved forward. "Good girl," Victor praised. And something in Sienna snapped. Not broke, snapped, like a rubber band pulled too tight. She wasn't 17 anymore. She wasn't helpless. She wasn't his weapon. No. The word came out stronger than she expected. Victor's expression flickered. Surprise. Then anger. "Excuse me?" "I said no." Sienna raised her weapon. Her hands were shaking, but the barrel stayed true. "I'm not your girl. I'm not your investment. I'm not yours." "Put the gun down, Sienna. You're not a killer." "Yes, I am." Her finger moved to the trigger. "You made sure of that. 12 fights. 12 wins. 7 fatalities. I'm exactly what you trained me to be." "Then shoot me." She wanted to. God, she wanted to. Her entire body screamed for it. For revenge. For closure. For the satisfaction of watching him bleed. But her hands wouldn't stop shaking. "Can't do it, can you?" Victor's smile returned. "Because despite everything, you still need me. You're still..." Ronan's shot took Victor in the shoulder. The Russian went down hard, not dead, but immobilized. "You don't need him," Ronan said quietly. "Not to Victor, to Sienna. You never did." The spell broke. Sienna lowered her weapon, looked at the 2 girls cowering in the hallway, at Ronan standing steady beside her, at Victor bleeding on the floor. "Get them out," she said. Her voice sounded strange, distant. "I need to do something first. Sienna, I need to burn it." Ronan understood immediately. "Finn, get the girls to the vehicles. We need 5 minutes." While the teams escorted the girls out, Sienna moved through the compound with methodical precision. She knew where Victor kept the gasoline, the accelerant, all the tools for training fires, because of course he'd taught her to handle fire. She poured it everywhere. The cells, the training rooms, the office with all of Victor's careful records. "This place needs to disappear," she said. "All of it." Ronan didn't argue. Just helped her spread the fuel. When they reached the main floor, Victor had dragged himself to a sitting position. Blood soaked his shirt, but he was still conscious. You can't destroy what I built, he said through gritted teeth. There are others like me. They'll find you. They'll take you back. Sienna crouched in front of him, met his eyes without flinching. Let them try. She stood, pulled out a lighter. Wait. Victor's voice was weaker now, strained. You kill me. You become me. Just another killer. No. Sienna flicked the lighter open. You made killers. I'm making sure you can't make any more. Sienna. My name, she said quietly, is Mrs. Blackwood now, and you don't get to say it ever again. Ronan's hand covered hers, not stopping her, supporting her. Together, he said. They lit it together. The flames caught immediately, raced up the walls, consumed the cells where girls had suffered, the training room where Sienna had learned to break bones, the office where Victor had kept his records. We need to move, Ronan said, now. They ran. Behind them, Victor's screams turned to smoke and silence. The compound went up fast. Years of accumulated cruelty turned to ash in minutes. Sienna didn't look back. They were in the SUV, blocks away, when Finn radioed. Girls are secure, medical team standing by. Victor? Ronan looked at Sienna. She thought about the man who'd bought her from her father, who'd spent 9 years breaking her down and rebuilding her into a weapon, who'd trafficked 15 girls before her and would have trafficked more. He was in the building when it went up, she said flatly. Finn didn't question it. Copy that. Heading to the rendezvous point. Ronan drove in silence for several minutes. Then, are you okay? I don't know. Sienna stared at her hands. They'd stopped shaking. I froze. I almost couldn't do it. But you did. You pushed through. Because you were there. I'll always be there. He reached over, took her hand. As long as you need me. They drove through the night. Behind them, Chicago burned orange against the dark sky. In the back seat, the 2 rescued girls slept, exhausted and traumatized, but safe. Sienna watched them in the rearview mirror, saw herself 9 years ago. Before Victor. Before the training. Before she'd learned that survival meant becoming something she never wanted to be. What happens to them? She asked. Reed has a program. Safe house, therapy, job training. We'll make sure they're taken care of. Will they be okay? Eventually, with time and help. Ronan glanced at her. Like you. Sienna wanted to believe that. Wanted to think she could heal, could become someone other than Victor's weapon. Maybe she could. She'd killed 7 people in the fighting rings. She'd watched Victor burn. She'd spent 9 years in hell. But she'd also survived. She'd escaped. She'd chosen to save those girls instead of running. That had to count for something. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For not giving up on me, even when I froze. Ronan's hand tightened around hers. I told you, I protect what's mine, and you're mine, Sienna. Not because of some contract, because you chose to be. She thought about that, about choice, about agency, about the difference between being owned and being protected. I'm still figuring out what that means, she admitted. We have time. He raised her hand to his lips, kissed her knuckles gently. We have all the time you need. They drove into the dawn. Behind them, the compound continued to burn, all evidence of Victor's crimes turning to ash and memory. Sienna closed her eyes and let herself lean against Ronan's shoulder. For the first time in 9 years, she felt safe. But safe didn't mean healed. It didn't mean whole. It just meant she had a chance to become those things. When we get home, Ronan said quietly, we're going to sleep for 12 hours. Then we're going to have a very long conversation about what happens next. What do you think happens next? I don't know, but I know we figure it out together. He paused. That 30-day trial period? Consider it over. You're not leaving, and I'm not letting you go. That sounds like control. That sounds like commitment. His eyes met hers briefly before returning to the road. There's a difference. And if you can't see it yet, I'll spend every day proving it to you. Sienna thought about that. about the difference between Victor's ownership and Ronan's protection, about choice and agency and the slow, painful process of healing. "One condition," she said finally. "Name it." "The girls. I want to be involved in their recovery. I want to help them." "Done. Reed will coordinate with you." Ronan's expression softened. "You're going to make a difference, Sienna, not as Victor's weapon, as yourself." "I don't even know who that is anymore." "Then we'll find out." He squeezed her hand. "Together." The word echoed in her mind all the way home. Together. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was everything. Chapter 7. Healing Through Fire. 2 weeks after Chicago, Sienna woke without screaming. She lay in the pre-dawn darkness of her bedroom, their bedroom, though Ronan still slept down the hall, and realized the nightmare hadn't come. For the first time in 9 years, she'd slept through the night. The absence felt strange, wrong somehow, like missing a tooth. She got up, padded barefoot to the window. The estate grounds were still dark, but she could see the first hints of sunrise bleeding into the eastern sky. Victor was dead. The compound was ashes. The girls were safe. And she didn't know what she was anymore. Couldn't sleep? Sienna turned to find Ronan in the doorway, wearing sweatpants and nothing else. His hair was disheveled, his eyes still heavy with interrupted sleep. "I slept," she said, "all night, no nightmares." Something flickered in his expression. Relief. "That's good, really good." "Is it?" She turned back to the window. "It feels like I'm forgetting something important." "You're not forgetting, you're healing." He moved into the room slowly, gave her space, but stayed close enough that she could feel his presence. "Reed said this might happen. Your brain is finally accepting that the threat is gone. Victor's gone, but there are others like him. And we'll deal with them if they come." Ronan's voice was matter-of-fact. "But right now, you're safe. You're allowed to feel that." Sienna wanted to believe him, wanted to let herself relax into the safety he provided. But safety felt dangerous. Safety meant vulnerability. And vulnerability meant someone could hurt you. "The girls asked about you," Ronan said, changing the subject. "Maya and Carmen. They want to know when you're coming back to the safe house." Maya Carmen. She'd learned their names during the first therapy session Dr. Reed had arranged. 17 and 19. Both taken from their families. Both trained for arranged marriages that would never happen now. Both looking at Sienna like she was some kind of savior. "I'll go today," she said. "Reed thinks you should wait another week. Give yourself time to—" "I'm fine. You slept without nightmares for the first time in 9 years. That's not fine. That's significant." Ronan moved closer. "You're allowed to take time for yourself, Sienna, to heal before you try to help others heal. They need me. They need you healthy, not burned out." His hand settled on her shoulder. Light touch, easy to break if she wanted. "1 more week. Then we'll set up a regular schedule. Agreed?" She should argue. Should insist she was ready. But the truth was, she was exhausted. The rescue had taken everything she had, and she hadn't realized how empty she was until now. 1 week, she agreed quietly. "Good." Ronan's hand squeezed gently before releasing. "Now I'm making breakfast. Come eat with me." They fell into a routine over the next week. Mornings, training together in the facility. Ronan pushed her, but carefully, testing her limits without crossing them, teaching her to fight without triggering her PTSD. Afternoons, therapy sessions with Dr. Reed, talking about Victor, about the compound, about the 9 years she'd lost, and the person she might have been if none of it had happened. Evenings, dinner with Ronan, sometimes in comfortable silence, sometimes talking about nothing, his business, her plans for working with Maya and Carmen, the books in his library. And nights were becoming complicated. Sienna found herself standing outside Ronan's guest room more often than not, knocking softly, asking if he was awake. He always was. They'd sit together in the darkness, sometimes talking, sometimes just existing in the same space. And slowly, imperceptibly, the distance between them narrowed. "Tell me about Lily," Sienna said one night. They were sitting on Ronan's bed, fully clothed, carefully not touching, but closer than they'd been the week before. Ronan was quiet for a long moment. What do you want to know? Everything. Who she was, what she was like. Why you still blame yourself. That's a lot of questions. We have time. He smiled slightly. She was light. That's the best way I can describe her. Everything about Lily was bright and good and hopeful. The complete opposite of me. You're not dark. I'm not light either. He stared at his hands. She wanted to be a teacher, work with kids, make the world better. And I wanted to follow in my father's footsteps, build the empire, make the family untouchable. That's not inherently bad. It is when your sister gets killed because of your choices. His voice went flat. There was a deal. Import/export. Legal on paper, less legal in reality. The other party thought I was trying to cheat them. They came to the house. Lily was home. Sienna reached out, took his hand. He didn't pull away. She was in the wrong place at the wrong time, Ronan continued. Crossfire, one bullet. That's all it took. He looked at their joined hands. I was supposed to protect her. That was my job as her older brother, and I failed. You were, what, 28? 29. And she was an adult, making her own choices, living her own life. Sienna squeezed his fingers. Her death wasn't your fault. It was the fault of the men who pulled the trigger. I brought them to our door. You didn't pull the trigger. She shifted closer. Ronan, I spent 9 years blaming myself for being sold to Victor, thinking if I'd just been better, smarter, more valuable to my father, he wouldn't have done it. But Reed made me realize something. What? It was never my fault. I was 17. I was a child. And my father was a monster who sold his daughter to pay his debts. She met his eyes. Just like you were doing your job, and someone else made the choice to use violence. You can't control other people's actions. Only your own. Ronan was quiet for a long time. Then, when did you get so wise? Tuesday, during my therapy session. She smiled slightly. Reed's pretty good at his job. He is. Ronan raised their joined hands, studied them like they were something precious. Can I ask you something? Always. Why do you keep coming here? To my room, at night? Sienna considered lying, saying it was just about the nightmares, or comfort, or habit. But they'd both been through too much for lies. Because I feel safe with you, she said honestly. When I'm here, the world feels manageable. Like maybe I can survive this. You can more than survive, you can thrive. Maybe, she hesitated. And because I'm starting to feel things I probably shouldn't. Ronan went very still. What kind of things? The kind where I want to stay in this room. With you. Not just sitting and talking. She forced herself to meet his eyes. The kind where I want you to kiss me. And I don't know if that's healthy, or trauma bonding, or just wanting something good after 9 years of hell. Sienna. I know it's too soon. I know I'm not ready. I know you probably see me as damaged goods. Stop. Ronan's free hand came up to cup her face. I don't see you as damaged. I see you as strong. As brave. As someone who survived something that should have destroyed her. Then why haven't you touched me? Really touched me, I mean. Beyond hand-holding and shoulder squeezes. Because I'm terrified. The admission came out raw, honest. Because I've wanted you since the moment you collapsed in my dining room. And that makes me feel like a monster. Sienna's breath caught. You wanted me, even then? Especially then. You were vulnerable and broken and I wanted to fix you. To keep you. To make you mine. He laughed bitterly. What kind of man wants a traumatized woman? The kind who sees past the trauma to the person underneath. Sienna leaned into his touch. Ronan, I'm not afraid of you. I'm afraid of myself. Of wanting this and not knowing if it's real or just survival instinct. Then we go slow. His thumb brushed across her cheekbone. We take all the time you need to figure out what you feel. And if you decide you want this, want me, For the right reasons, I'll be here. And if I decide I don't? Then I'll help you leave, set you up somewhere safe, make sure you have everything you need to start over. His eyes held hers. Because I meant what I said. You're not a prisoner, you're my wife. And that means I want you happy, even if happy doesn't include me. Sienna felt something crack open in her chest. This man, this dangerous, powerful, ruthless man, was offering her choice, freedom, agency, everything Victor had stolen. Can I try something? She asked quietly. Anything. She leaned forward slowly, gave him time to pull away, and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was gentle, tentative, nothing like the brutal claiming she'd experienced during training sessions with Victor. This was soft, sweet, instead of demand. Ronan's hand trembled against her face, but he didn't deepen the kiss. Just let her explore at her own pace. When she pulled back, they were both breathing hard. Was that okay? She whispered. That was perfect. He rested his forehead against hers. But Sienna, I need you to understand something. What? When we do this, if we do this, I need to know it's because you want me, not because you think you owe me, not because you're trying to prove you're healed, but because you genuinely want this. I don't know yet, she admitted. I don't know if what I'm feeling is real or just reaction. Then we wait until you do know, he kissed her forehead. I've waited this long, I can wait longer. Sienna wanted to argue, wanted to say she was sure, but she wasn't. And Ronan deserved honesty. Thank you, she said instead. For what? For being patient, for not pushing, for treating me like a person instead of a possession. Always. He pulled back slightly. Now it's late, you should sleep. Can I stay? Here, I mean. Just to sleep. Something softened in his expression. Of course. They lay down together on top of the covers, fully clothed, carefully maintaining space between their bodies. But Sienna's hand found his in the darkness, and she fell asleep, holding on to him like an anchor. The next morning she woke to sunlight streaming through the windows, and Ronan's arm draped over her waist. Sometime during the night they'd gravitated toward each other. She was tucked against his chest, his body curved protectively around hers. She should move, should establish boundaries, should maintain the distance they'd agreed on. Instead, she closed her eyes and let herself enjoy the warmth, the safety, the feeling of being held without being owned. You're awake, Ronan murmured against her hair. How did you know? Your breathing changed. He didn't move his arm. Is this okay? Yeah. She turned slightly to look at him. Is it okay for you? More than okay. His eyes were soft in the morning light, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen. I could get used to waking up like this. Me too. They stayed like that for a long time. No talking, no pressure, just existing together in the quiet. Eventually, Sienna's phone buzzed. Dr. Reed, reminding her about today's session. I should go, she said reluctantly. Probably, but Ronan didn't release her. Sienna? Yeah? Thank you for trusting me enough to stay. She pressed a kiss to his chest, right over his heart. Thank you for being worth trusting. When she left for therapy an hour later, she couldn't stop smiling. You're glowing, Dr. Reed observed during their session. Sienna touched her face self-consciously. I am not. You are. What happened? She told him about the sleepless night, the conversation, the kiss, waking up in Ronan's arms. Reed listened without judgment, made notes. When she finished, he said, How do you feel about all of it? Confused, scared, hopeful, she paused. Happy, maybe. I don't remember the last time I felt happy. That's significant. And the confusion? I don't know if what I'm feeling is real, if I actually want Ronan, or if I just need someone after 9 years of isolation. Does it have to be one or the other? The question stopped her. What do you mean? You can need someone and want them. You can be grateful for their help and genuinely attracted to them. Human emotions aren't either or propositions. Reed, leaned forward. The question isn't whether your feelings are pure or untainted by trauma. It's whether they're genuine, whether you're making choices for yourself or because you think you should. How do I know the difference? You ask yourself, if Ronan left tomorrow, would you be devastated because you'd lose him or because you'd lose what he provides? Sienna thought about that, really thought about it. If Ronan left, she'd miss his steady presence, his quiet strength, the way he looked at her like she mattered, the conversations in the dark, the warmth of waking up in his arms. Not the money, not the protection, not the resources. Him. I'd miss him, she said quietly. Ronan specifically, not just what he represents. Reed smiled. Then, I think you have your answer. Chapter 8. The Weight of Vows. Liam Callahan arrived on a Tuesday. Sienna was in the training room, working through combinations with Ronan, when Finn burst through the door with an expression she'd never seen before. Fear. "We have a problem," Finn said. "Your father's at the gate." Sienna's blood ran cold. "My what?" "Liam Callahan. Says he's here to check on his daughter, make sure she's being treated properly." Finn's jaw tightened. He brought 6 men with him, all armed. Ronan was already moving. How did he get past perimeter security? He didn't. Security stopped him at the main gate. But he's threatening to call the police. Claims Sienna's being held against her will. The rage that swept through Sienna was white-hot and pure. That son of a bitch! Her hands clenched into fists. "He sold me. He has no right. He has legal rights as your father." Ronan's voice was calm, controlled, the kind of calm that came before violence. "Unless you want to press charges for what he did." She thought about it, testifying against Liam, exposing what he'd done, watching him go to prison for human trafficking. But that would mean court, lawyers, her entire history with Victor becoming public record. "No," she said finally. "I just want him gone." "Then we'll make him go." Ronan looked at Finn. "Full security detail. I want every man we have between Liam and this house. And get Reed on the phone. I want a psychiatric evaluation ready to go if this bastard tries to claim Sienna's incompetent." "Already done. Reed's in the library." "Good." Ronan turned to Sienna. "You don't have to see him if you don't want to. I can handle this." She wanted to say yes. Wanted to hide in the training room while Ronan dealt with the man who'd destroyed her life. But that was the old Sienna, the one who'd let people make decisions for her. "No," she said. "I'll see him, but you're coming with me." Something flickered in Ronan's expression. Pride? Maybe. Always. They met Liam in the foyer. He looked older than Sienna remembered, grayer, more worn down by years of gambling debts and bad decisions. But his eyes were the same, cold, calculating, seeing her as nothing more than a commodity. "Sienna," his voice carried false warmth. "There you are. I've been so worried." "Get out." The words came out flat, emotionless, exactly the way Victor had taught her to deliver killing blows. Liam's expression flickered. "Sweetheart, I know you're upset about the marriage, but I was trying to help." "Help?" Sienna laughed. The sound was bitter, broken. "You sold me to a monster. You took money from Victor Kozlov to hand over your 17-year-old daughter. That's not help. That's trafficking. I did what was necessary to keep our family afloat. You did what was necessary to pay your gambling debts." She took a step forward. Ronan stayed at her shoulder, a solid presence. 9 years. 9 years I spent in that compound, being trained, being broken, being turned into something I never wanted to be. And you knew what he was doing to me. I knew you were being prepared for a good marriage. I was being tortured," her voice cracked. "He burned me, broke my bones, starved me, made me fight in death matches, and you let it happen because he paid you." Liam's face went pale. I didn't know about that part." "Bullshit." Ronan's voice cut through the air like a blade. "You knew exactly what Victor was. We found the contracts, the agreements. You sold your daughter into systematic abuse and you documented every payment. I want to see those documents. My lawyer will. Your lawyer can't help you. Ronan pulled out his phone, showed Liam the screen. That's a signed confession from Viktor Kozlov, detailing his entire operation, including your involvement, your payments, your knowledge of what was happening to Sienna. Sienna's heart stopped. Victor's dead. The confession was written 3 years ago. Finn found it in the safe during the compound raid. Ronan's smile was cold, sharp. Kozlov kept records of everyone he did business with. Insurance, probably, but it works in our favor now. Liam's hands were shaking. You can't prove anything. He's dead. He can't testify. Don't need him to testify. The document's admissible, and we have bank records, wire transfers, emails. Ronan stepped forward. I have enough evidence to bury you for 20 years. Human trafficking, child endangerment, conspiracy, take your pick. Then why haven't you? Liam's voice was desperate now. Why haven't you gone to the police? Because Sienna didn't want me to. Ronan's hand settled on her shoulder. She wanted you gone from her life. Permanently. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave this estate. You're going to never contact Sienna again. You're going to pretend she doesn't exist. And if I don't, then I release the documents to the FBI, the state police, the media, everyone. Ronan's expression went deadly. And I make sure that everyone knows what you did, how you sold your daughter, how you profited from her pain. You'll spend the rest of your life in prison if you make it that long. The threat was clear, unambiguous. Liam looked at Sienna. You'd really do that to your own father? You're not my father. The words came out strong, clear. A father protects his child, loves his child. You sold me like property, so yes, I'd do that. I'd do worse if I could. Liam's face crumpled. For a moment, he looked like he might argue, might try to justify what he'd done. Then he turned and walked toward the door. If you ever come back, Ronan called after him, I won't bother with the courts. I'll handle it myself. Understand? Liam paused, nodded once, and left. The silence that followed was deafening. Sienna stood in the foyer, watching through the window as her father got into his car and drove away. The man who'd given her life, who'd taken her to the park as a child, who'd taught her to ride a bike. The man who'd sold her for $30,000. Sienna, Ronan's voice pulled her back. Are you okay? I don't know. She turned to face him. I thought confronting him would feel different, like closure, but I just feel empty. That's normal. You spent years preparing for that moment, and now it's over. Ronan moved closer. The emptiness will fade, eventually. How do you know? Because I felt the same way after Lily died. After I finally dealt with the men who killed her. He took her hand. Revenge doesn't fill the hole. Time does. And the people you surround yourself with. Sienna looked at their joined hands. I'm done running. What? From this. From us. From whatever this is becoming. She met his eyes. I spent 9 years being Victor's weapon. Then I spent weeks trying to figure out if what I felt for you was real or trauma. But I'm done questioning it. Sienna, I love you. The words came out rushed, desperate. I don't know when it happened. Maybe when you caught me during that first sparring session. Maybe when you sat outside my door after nightmares. Maybe when you trusted me enough to take me into Victor's compound. But it happened. And I'm done pretending it didn't. Ronan stared at her like she'd just performed a miracle. Say something, she whispered. Instead of speaking, he pulled her into his arms and kissed her. This wasn't like their first kiss, tentative and gentle and asking permission. This was claiming, possessive, a declaration that they were done pretending. When they broke apart, Ronan rested his forehead against hers. I've been in love with you since you threatened my rival at our wedding reception. Maybe before that. Maybe the moment you collapsed in my dining room and I realized you were worth saving. I saved myself. No, we saved each other. He cupped her face. You gave me a reason to be more than just the Empire, More than just the cold businessman everyone thinks I am. You made me remember what it felt like to care about something other than power. That's very romantic for a mafia boss." He smiled. "Former military. We're allowed to be romantic occasionally." Sienna laughed. Actually laughed. The sound felt foreign and wonderful. "Take me to bed," she said. Ronan's eyes darkened. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. I'm ready. And I want this. I want you." "Then let's go upstairs. To our bedroom. The one we're going to share from now on." "Our bedroom," she repeated. The words felt right. They walked up the stairs hand in hand. Past the guest room where Ronan had been sleeping. Past Sienna's room. To the master bedroom at the end of the hall. Ronan had changed it since the wedding. The furniture was different. Softer. Less imposing. He'd added bookshelves along one wall. A reading chair by the window. "When did you do this?" Sienna asked. "Last week. I figured if you were going to move in here eventually, it should feel like yours too. It's perfect." They stood in the middle of the room, suddenly uncertain, two people who'd survived hell individually, now trying to figure out how to exist together. "I need you to know something," Sienna said quietly. I don't have a lot of experience with this, with intimacy that isn't violent or transactional." "I know. And we'll go slow as you need." "I don't want slow." She reached for the hem of her shirt. "I want to stop being afraid. Stop letting Victor control me, even after he's dead." Ronan caught her hands. "This isn't about Victor. This is about us, about you deciding what you want." "I want you." She pulled her shirt over her head, let it drop to the floor. "I want to feel something good, something that's mine by choice." Ronan's hands trembled as they settled on her waist. "You're sure?" "I'm sure." What followed was slow despite Sienna's protests. Ronan insisted on taking his time, kissing every scar, every mark, every place Victor had damaged. And for the first time in 9 years, Sienna felt truly safe. When they finally came together, it wasn't about possession or control or power. It was about choice, about trust, about two broken people finding wholeness in each other. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the bed, Sienna's head on Ronan's chest, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her spine. "I have a question," she said. "Anything. What happens now? With us, with the girls, with everything." "Now," Ronan pressed a kiss to her hair. "Now we live. You work with Maya and Carmen. Help them heal. I run the business. We figure out how to be married for real instead of on paper." "That sounds normal. Is that okay?" "It's perfect." She looked up at him. "Thank you. For everything. For saving me. For being patient. For loving me even when I didn't think I deserved it." "You always deserved it. You just needed time to see it." He pulled her closer. "I love you, Sienna Blackwood, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving it." "I love you too." The words felt natural now. "Right. My husband. My wife." They fell asleep like that. Two people who'd found each other in the darkest circumstances and chose to build something light. The next morning, Sienna woke to sunlight and the smell of coffee. She stretched, feeling pleasantly sore in ways that had nothing to do with training. The bed beside her was empty, but she could hear movement downstairs. She pulled on one of Ronan's shirts and padded barefoot down to the kitchen. He was at the stove, making breakfast. Eggs, bacon, toast. Normal domestic things that felt surreal in the context of their lives. "Morning," she said. He turned, and the look on his face made her breath catch. Pure contentment. Like he'd been waiting his whole life for this moment. "Morning, wife." "Morning, husband." They ate breakfast together at the kitchen island, talked about Maya and Carmen's progress, about Finn's latest security report, about the mundane details of building a life together. And for the first time since she was 17, Sienna felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Not because someone had forced her, not because she'd been sold or traded or arranged, because she'd chosen it. Later that afternoon, they visited the safe house where Maya and Carmen were recovering. The girls were in the common room, working on art therapy projects with one of Reed's counselors. When they saw Sienna, their faces lit up. "You came back," Maya said. The 17-year-old still looked fragile, haunted, but there was color in her cheeks now, hope in her eyes. "I promised I would." Sienna sat down with them. "How are you both doing?" "Better," Carmen answered, 19 years old and already carrying the weight of the world. "Dr. Reed says we're making progress, that it's okay to take our time." "It is. Recovery isn't linear. Some days will be better than others." "Were you like us?" Maya asked quietly. "Before?" Sienna nodded. "I was exactly like you. Scared, broken, not sure if I'd ever feel normal again." "And now?" She thought about that, about the nightmares that still came occasionally, about the scars she'd carry forever, about the therapy sessions that would probably continue for years. "Now I'm healing," she said honestly. "And you will too. It takes time, and help, and people who understand. But you'll get there." Ronan watched from the doorway as Sienna worked with the girls, answering their questions, sharing her story, giving them the hope she'd once been denied. And he knew, with absolute certainty, that marrying her had been the best decision he'd ever made. Not because of duty, not because of contracts, because she was extraordinary. That evening, back at the estate, they stood on the terrace, watching the sunset. "I have something for you," Ronan said. He handed her a small box. Inside was a new ring, not the platinum band from the wedding, something different. A delicate gold ring with a single small diamond, simple, understated, perfect. "It's beautiful," Sienna whispered. "The other ring was for the contract. This one's for us." He took it out of the box. "Will you wear it? As a symbol of the choice we're making, not the one that was forced on us?" Sienna held out her hand, let him slide the ring onto her finger beside the platinum band. "I'll wear it every day," she promised. They stood together as the sun set over the estate, two people who'd been broken by their pasts, choosing to build a future together. "I love you," Sienna said. The words came easier now, more natural. "I love you too," Ronan pulled her close. "And I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving it." "You already have." And as they watched the last light fade from the sky, Sienna realized something profound. She'd spent 9 years as Victor's weapon, 3 weeks as Ronan's contracted wife. But now, finally, she was simply herself. Sienna Blackwood. Survivor, fighter, partner, wife. And for the first time in her life, she was exactly who she wanted to be. Epilogue. 1 year later, Sienna stood in the training room, watching Maya execute a perfect roundhouse kick. The girl, woman now, really, had come so far from the hollow-eyed 17-year-old Ronan's team had rescued from Victor's compound. She was 18 now, stronger, healthier. Her eyes still carried shadows, but there was light there too. Hope. "Better," Sienna said. "But remember to pivot on your planted foot. You'll get more power that way." Maya tried again. This time the kick was textbook perfect. "Like that?" "Exactly like that," Sienna smiled. "You're ready." "For what?" "To teach others." Sienna gestured toward the window overlooking the estate grounds. "We've had 3 more girls arrive this week. All survivors, all scared, all needing someone who understands." Maya's expression shifted. "You want me to train them?" "I want you to help them heal. The way you've healed." Sienna moved closer. "You don't have to fight anymore, Maya. But if you choose to help others who've been through what we've been through, the option is there." The girl was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I'd like that. To help them. To show them it gets better." "Good." Sienna squeezed her shoulder. "We start tomorrow." The foundation had been Sienna's idea. 6 months after the rescue, after she'd worked through enough of her own trauma to think clearly about the future, she'd approached Ronan with a proposal. "I want to help them, all of them. Every girl who's been trafficked, trained, sold. I want to give them what I never had. Choice." Ronan had funded it immediately. No questions, no hesitation, just unwavering support. The Blackwood Foundation for Survivors occupied a converted estate 30 minutes from their home. 20 beds, full medical staff, therapists, legal advocates, job training programs, everything a survivor needed to rebuild their life. Maya and Carmen had been their first residents. Now, 18 months later, they had 23 women in various stages of recovery, and more arriving every week. Sienna walked through the facility, checking on each resident, talking with staff, reviewing case files. This was her purpose now, not fighting in rings, not surviving Victor's training, but helping others survive their own hells. Mrs. Blackwood. She turned to find Dr. Reed approaching. He'd agreed to serve as the Foundation's chief medical officer, splitting his time between the estate and the facility. "How's our newest arrival?" Sienna asked. "Stable, physically at least. Emotionally." Reed's expression was grim. "She's been with her trafficker for 6 years, since she was 12. It's going to be a long recovery." Sienna's hands clenched. "Do we have information on the trafficker?" "Already passed to Ronan. He's handling it." Handling it meant what it always meant in Ronan's world. The trafficker would disappear, quietly, permanently, and no one would ask questions. A year ago, that might have bothered Sienna. The moral ambiguity, the casual violence. Now, she just felt relief. One less monster in the world. "Good," she said simply. She found Ronan in his office that evening, reviewing financial reports. He looked up when she entered, smiled. The expression transformed his entire face, softened the harsh lines, warmed the cold green of his eyes. "How was your day?" he asked. "Productive. Maya's ready to start helping with the new arrivals." Sienna settled into the chair across from his desk. "And Reed says our newest resident is stable." "I heard. Finn's tracking down her trafficker now, should have a location by tomorrow." "And then?" "And then he stops being a problem." Ronan set down his pen. "But that's my job. How are you?" The question was loaded. He always asked. Always checked to make sure she was okay, that the work wasn't overwhelming her, that she wasn't sacrificing her own healing to help others. "I'm good," she said honestly. "Really good. Watching Maya progress, seeing the new arrivals start to trust us. It helps, knowing I'm making a difference." "You've always made a difference. To me, at least." She smiled. "Charmer." "Husband." He stood, came around the desk, pulled her to her feet and into his arms. "My extraordinary, beautiful, strong wife." Sienna melted into him, let herself be held. After a year of marriage, she'd finally learned to accept comfort without flinching. To trust that touch didn't always mean pain. "I love you," she murmured against his chest. "I love you too." His lips found hers. The kiss was gentle, sweet, promise of more later, when they had privacy and time. When they broke apart, Ronan rested his forehead against hers. "I have something to tell you." "Good something or bad something?" "Depends on your perspective." He pulled back slightly. "Finn found your mother." Sienna's stomach dropped. "My mother?" "Biological mother, the one who gave you up for adoption before your father, before Liam, got you." Ronan's expression was careful, neutral. "She's been looking for you, has been for years, but Liam kept moving you around, changing your information, making sure she couldn't find you." "Why?" "Because she wanted custody back, was going to fight for you. Liam didn't want to lose his," he paused, "his asset." The word hit like a physical blow. Asset. That's all she'd ever been to him. Something to be sold when convenient. "Does she know?" Sienna asked. "About Victor? About what happened?" Finn told her the basics. "She wants to meet you if you're willing." Sienna thought about that. About the woman who'd given birth to her, who'd given her up, for whatever reason, and then spent years trying to get her back. "What's her name?" "Rebecca Hale. She's a nurse. Lives in Portland. Never married. No other children." Ronan's hand found hers. "Finn says she seems genuine, but I can have him dig deeper if you want." "No." The decision came quickly. Decisively. "I want to meet her, but on my terms. Here, at the estate." "Done. I'll have Finn arrange it." That night, lying in bed with Ronan's arms around her, Sienna thought about family. Liam had been her father by law. Victor had owned her for 9 years. Both had treated her as property. But Ronan had given her choice, agency, the freedom to become whoever she wanted to be. And maybe, just maybe, Rebecca would be different too. Someone who actually wanted her. Not for what she could provide, but for who she was. "What are you thinking about?" Ronan's voice rumbled against her back. "Family, and how we choose it." "Is that what we are? Chosen family?" "You are." She turned in his arms. "You're the family I chose, the one I want, the one I'm keeping." "Good." He kissed her forehead. "Because you're stuck with me, for better or worse, till death do us part." "We didn't say those vows." "I'm saying them now." His eyes held hers in the darkness. "I, Ronan Blackwood, take you, Sienna, to be my wife, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do us part." Tears stung her eyes. "Ronan, your turn." She swallowed hard. "I, Sienna Blackwood, take you, Ronan, to be my husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do us part." There! He wiped away her tears. "Now it's official. Real vows, real marriage, real everything." "It was always real," she whispered, "from the moment you refused to let me be a prisoner, from the moment you gave me choice." They made love slowly, tenderly. Two people who'd found each other in darkness and chosen to create light. And afterward, as Sienna drifted off to sleep, she thought about the future. About meeting her mother. About helping more survivors. About the life she and Ronan were building together. About the possibility, distant but real, of children someday. Little ones who would grow up knowing they were wanted, loved, protected. Not as weapons. Not as assets. As people. "Hey," Ronan murmured drowsily, "what are you smiling about?" "Everything. The future. Us." "Yeah?" "Yeah." She nestled closer. "I'm happy. Actually, genuinely happy. For the first time in my life." "Good." His arms tightened around her. "You deserve to be happy. Every single day. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you are." "That's a big promise." "I keep my promises. Haven't you learned that by now?" She had. Over the past year, Ronan had proven himself again and again, keeping her safe, supporting her dreams, loving her unconditionally. "I love you," she said, not for the first time that day, not for the last. "I love you too." He pressed a kiss to her hair. "My fierce, beautiful, extraordinary wife." They fell asleep tangled together. Two souls who'd been scarred by their pasts, but refused to let those scars define their future. Outside, the estate grounds were quiet, secure, protected. Inside, Sienna and Ronan slept peacefully. No nightmares, no fear, just the quiet contentment of two people who'd found home in each other. And somewhere in Portland, a woman named Rebecca Hale booked a flight to Boston, hope blooming in her chest for the first time in 25 years. The story wasn't over. It was just beginning. Because healing isn't an ending. It's a process, a journey, a choice made every single day. And Sienna had chosen to heal, to love, to live, bound not by her scars, but by the strength she'd found in spite of them. The end.